Black people, we have to fight. Egungu, you see us. Oguo, we have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Dandara, you see us. Oguo, we have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Makandalo, you see us. Oguo, we have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Nana John, Henry Clark, you see us.
We have to fight. Let's go fight.
Black people, we have to fight. Yasatewa, you see us. We have to fight.
Let's go fight.
Black people, we have to fight. Marcus Garvey, you see us. We have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Nana Zumbio, you see us. We have to fight.
Let's go fight.
Black people, we have to fight. Nana Hannibal, you see us. Oguo, we have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Ancestors, you see us. We have to fight. Let's go fight.
We have to have the courage to construct our own reality. And that's what Garvey was talking about. Because he said he looked around, he didn't see what he thought should be there, and so what did he do? He didn't get depressed about it. He didn't get defeated about it. He said, I'm going to build the government that we need to have. Ooh. Where do you get that kind of boldness from? So we got to go all the way back to Garvey, who said he would come again. He said, he would be here with us, no matter how long it took. And I'm telling you that the way he comes back is in our work. Not honoring him in words, pomp and all of that stuff, but honoring him through doing what he did. How many of us have the courage to do that? The man took on the world for us and in our name. And then we come to Sodai. And in this presentation of the paradigm, I'm going to make this like what it is we want to reach. So Sodai is translated clear word in Dogana language. And I use it to mean that here we gain understanding. This is sight with understanding. And it is seeing beyond what just we think we see with this physical thing. It's seeing beyond that. And so we gain vision, because that's what vision is. With vision, you've got to be able to use the imagination informed by the African spirit. And Brother Amos, who I work very closely with, was a good friend of mine. He taught me, and he would talk about imagination. Image a nation. Do you see? But that's got to be part of vision. To be a visionary, you got to see beyond this box here. You got to see beyond the ma'afa. You got to see what is it that our people rightfully should have, and that's what Garvey did. Garvey had a vision.
All of the Abosu, all of the Orisa, all of the Loa, all of the Dutchman, all of the Ọ̀yá bẹ̀dẹ̀ẹ̀sì, ọ̀ṣun bẹ̀dẹ̀ẹ̀sì, ògún bẹ̀dẹ̀ẹ̀sì, èyẹ̀mọ́dá bẹ̀dẹ̀ẹ̀sì, olókùn bẹ̀dẹ̀ẹ̀sì, ògúnlá bẹ̀dẹ̀ẹ̀sì, akẹ́kẹ́mọ́dá bẹ̀dẹ̀ẹ̀sì, abúsùnwọ̀ ẹ̀tìtì nàìjíríà mẹ́dẹ̀ẹ̀sì, abúsùnwọ̀ bẹ̀kún nípa mẹ́dẹ̀ẹ̀sì, all abúsùn that in the north, the south, right and left mẹ́dẹ̀ẹ̀sì yẹ̀fẹ́mu, sẹ̀mífẹ́ bàbá mi fẹ́ mu nìyà, nànà ló fàtí mu nìyà mú nà, nànà ló fàtí pàtó, one of you are for all of you, mẹ́dẹ̀ẹ̀sì, come and see some of this, nànà ló, pàtó we call all of those Bosun who have fought on behalf of African people, nànà ló fàtí mu nìyà mú nà, all of those Bosun, all of those spirits who have agreed to help move African people forward, yẹ̀fẹ́mu mu nìyà mú nà, nànà ló fàtí yẹ̀fẹ́mu, nànà ló fàtí yẹ̀fẹ́mu, nànà Mr. 949 yẹ̀fẹ́mu, we call all of our ancestors, both our family, our community, and our national ancestors, nànà ló fàtí at this time, can you please call out our ancestors? Muna, mumra, 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 mumra.
Kuya Nahanda, Winnie Mandela, Fela and Nicola Paputi.
All of those ancestors who have committed themselves to African people, all of those ancestors who have committed themselves to family building, community building, and nation building, all of those ancestors who who shed their own blood on behalf of the African people. All of those ancestors who committed their time, who committed their minds, their spirits, their bodies to continue to open the way for African people to be free, to have power, to be able to safeguard our existence and continue development. Moment then, so I call one of you, I call all of you. Nana no Pacho be boneni. Ayoko Fuku Queen. Nana no Pacho, there's nothing bad here. It is me, Okonfo Queen. You said that was a why you're mine. You say thank you for what you have done for us. Nana no, you said that was in mobile mine. You say thank you for what you will do for us. Nana no, Islam said, and then that part. We ask that today be a good day. Islam said today be a day where African people are able to come together on behalf of African people. Islam, we ask that today be a day where no alien thoughts, no alien intellect or emotion or spirit are able to come in our space. We ask that today be a day where we concentrate a space where we're able to work on behalf of African people only. We ask we're able to work on behalf of those who have came before us, those who are here now with us, and those who will come after us. I don't know. We ask that everything that happens today may go well. We ask that we will not meet anything negative on this road. We ask that if there's any challenges here today, we ask that if you are not able to remove those challenges for us, if you want us to face those challenges, we ask that you give us the strength, we ask that you give us the power, the humility, the clarity, the wisdom, and all of those things that are necessary for us to be victorious in the face of all of those challenges. And I don't know, but there's some awarding, there's some Sika, there's some Tumi, there's some Nelson, there's some Bim, PIB here, so we're between the economy, and we have the bonum. We ask you for all those things that we need to be victorious in the face of our destiny and our life as African people. And I don't know, but you say Dawasi, that's Nanano.
Tendai Mwadi, be thankful unto the Mother, Father, creative life force of the universe. Kudzai, Modzimo Mokoro, we give praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodie, African power and African liberation for all African people. Greetings and welcome, kings and queens, brethren and sisters. We are live once again right here on Kimbunga Media for an impromptu live session, a very, very impromptu live session. You know what I mean? Somewhat facetiously and controversially referred to as Africans versus Caribbeans. Now we burn up them thing there. We not deal with Africans versus Caribbeans. You know, we burn up them thing there still. Yeah, and we'll explain that in a second. But give thanks for all those who have tuned in and all those who will tune in and all those who are gonna watch the playback. And so we're gonna get into the topic today. What I'm gonna do is I released a brief video the other day, and I'm gonna go through the comments on that video, respond to them, and me going open up the lines as well, yeah, for those who want to come through and speak their mind on this particular topic. And you know, say if you know I and you follow I for any length of time, you know this is a topic that man does speak on quite regularly. You know what I mean? So we're going on some things today. Hold tight for that. Hold tight for that. Let me before I go any further, just say that the month of Mosiah approaches. Garvey lives, Mosiah live. And so we have a number of events coming up. The two that we're promoting right about now are the Mosiah opening ceremony. The Mosiah opening ceremony taking place on Umoja Day, Sunday, the 2nd of Mosiah, from the hour of 12 p.m. down there at the Chestnut Community Center in Tottenham, N15 5BN. For more information, check out the website alkebulan.org. This is the official opening to the month of Mosiah, which takes place as a part of our Shemira, as the Alkebulan Revivalist Movement. Shemira is our traditional African spiritual worship gathering. And so every Mosiah, it is extended because of the fact that we merge it with the Mosiah opening ceremony. And so if you want more information on that, do check out the website alkebulan.org, alkebulan.org. I have the honor of being the keynote speaker on the day, and the theme for the message is the ideal of nationhood, or the revolutionary ideal of nationhood, the revolutionary ideal of nationhood. So we're going to be exploring what nationhood is and means from a Garveyite perspectives, and why it is a revolutionary ideal, especially because of the fact that in this day and age, when we speak of revolution, often we are not speaking in terms of nationhood, and that is an extreme deficit in our reasoning as African people. So we're going at that in that particular conversation right there. So and so yeah, do check that out. Do check that out. Yeah. If you are obviously in the UK, you're welcome to reach. If you are living abroad, feel free to get a plane ticket, come true. And if not, we will share it with you at a later date on Kimbunga Media. And so shout out to my brother Nate, the lyricist, who will be our featured artist for the proceedings. And there'll be other aspects of that particular day, including our special Messiah libation and narrative. And so, yeah, the Messiah opening ceremony is always big things, serious things. And so we look forward to seeing the item down there. Another event that we're promoting for the month of Messiah. There will be other events, online events coming live through Kimbunga Media, but so do stay tuned for that. But another event that we are promoting is the Drums of Mosiah. Drums of Mosiah. Yes, indeed, kings and queens. This is on the birthday of the prophet himself, on the birthday of Papa Garvey, which is the 17th of Mosiah, August. And this year, that falls on a Kudisha Gulia Day, a Monday. But whatever day it falls on, for those of us who are Garveyites, are Mosiahites, and Al-Kebulanites, you know, we're born work for that day there. And I just Mosiah we are dealing with. So we are going to be gathering in a Brixton, South London, what them call Windrush Square, out there in the open for a drum circle session. And so it's a bring your drum and come thing, bring any percussion where you want to bring, you know what I mean? If you want to bring a saxophone, you know, so it go. And we'll just be engaging in some, just raising up the vibrations and a libation we poured on that day as well. It's a 2-hour session starting from 1 p.m. and going through to 3 p.m. For those who have been avid viewers of Kimbunga, you will know that we shared our Drums of Messiah session a couple years ago, 2024, with Ono. And so we'll do that. I'm not sure if we're going to do it live for the international audience. We'll see. But if not live, we'll share it with you later that day or, you know, in the days following. Yeah. So once again, Mosiah opening ceremony, 2nd of Mosiah, and the Drums of Mosiah, 17th of Mosiah. Come true, you know what I'm saying? Take the morning in a work if you have to, and then come down to Drums of Mosiah in a Brixton. You know what I mean? Out there. You know, everyone know where Brixton Windrush Square is, right outside the Black Cultural Archives and the Ritzy Cinema, Kings and Queens. All right. So do come true. Do come true. All right. So let's get into our topic for the day, the evening, the afternoon, depending on wherever you are in the world right now. And before I do so, let me big up the chat. Shout out to Meloman in the building. Shout out to Mr. Set Imhotep. You don't know. In the building. Mr. K. You don't know. In the building. And all those who are silent viewers, blessings, welcome. And do feel free to hit up the chat when you so wish. And or join the panel as and where I share the link. So what I want to do today is go through the comments, that were left on a video that I posted. Just a breakdown from my perspective on this issue that has flared up all over the internet, because Gina Yeshere went on a podcast. Gina Yeshere is a very well-known comedian among the Black community in the UK. And she, you know, I say in the last decade or more, a bit more than a decade, has become an internationally renowned comedian because she went, you know, to the States between Los Angeles and New York, and she did some she did a comedy, one of them comedy competition reality TV show type things as well. And so she's developed to the international profile. As sorry, excuse me. Let me sip my coconut water. Lord have mercy. Yeah, so she has developed an international profile And the other day was on the One Africa podcast, and made some statements that many consider to be controversial. Now, this has been going on for a few weeks, yeah, in terms of people reasoning about this all over the internet. And it took me a while to say anything about it. And the reason why it took me a while is, one, because I'm very careful not to just jump in when I see things like that and jump into the melee, mostly because often what it triggers is massive diaspora warfare. And I am very mindful about how I promote, engage, facilitate diaspora wars on the internet. Very, very, sensitive to that issue and how it plays out all over the place. And so I'm very reluctant to feed that particular beast in any way, shape, or form. And secondly, because the podcast that she was on is about 2 hours long, and I noticed that people are responding just to snippets. And that's not to say that we always have to watch the 2 hour long broadcast before we can say anything. And that's not what I'm saying. But I thought it would be wise to not say anything until I had heard more. Yeah. And so at the same time as well, quite frankly, I don't feel I have to comment upon everything while go on the internet and upon the social media. Every issue is not my issue to respond to. And sometimes the people criticize me for this, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not always one that's going to jump on whatever the hype issue of the day is and feel like somebody have to say something and going at it. Sometimes just let it pass, because it will pass and there are more important things to talk about. I got some things coming out. There's a very serious issue happening in Haiti at the moment. The other day we done a show with our brother Heru on the incarceration of our brother Kemi Seba and his son Konsu in Azania, South Africa. Very important issue. You know what I'm saying? Sudan, Congo. You know what I'm saying? There's the Eastern Caribbean recently produced a new set of bills, money, Eastern Caribbean dollars, bills, that remove the image of Elizabeth of Windsor, former monarch of the United Kingdom of Great Britain, and have replaced her with regional heroes and heroines. And so there's a whole conversation to be had about that, you know what I'm saying, and what that means, whether that's a step in the right direction, which it certainly is. But there's also still a conversation to be had about exactly who made it on the bills and who did not, right? You know what I'm saying? There's a whole conversation to be had about that. I saw a video the other day of a nurse in Jamaica, basically telling Prime Minister Andrew Holness about the nursing situation, the fact that there has never been enough nurses in medical personnel in Jamaica. Them serious issues are going on in our world. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I mentioned South Africa. There's a whole next thing that we could talk about in terms of South Africa and the so-called xenophobia wagwan, what them call xenophobia, which we say is a better term to be used, is Afrophobia, because it's not just a generic fear of the unknown. It's internalized in terms of how Africans are related to other Africans. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Europeans are not facing that kind of treatment in Azania, South Africa. And there's a lot of complexities around that issue. We will get to that issue, and there's a combination of how we're going to get to that issue in terms of addressing Brother Kemi Seba as well. And so in the midst of all them things, the kings and queens, to be honest with you, when it comes to social media beef and diaspora wars and all them things there, I'm not always fast, to jump on the bandwagon and say, this is the thing we have to talk about right now. Yeah, just being real and honest with Uno. All right, enough things are going on in our world. Yeah, plenty of things are going on in our world, and sometimes my Sematawi teacher who initiated me into systems of Kemetu yoga, says that we have a talent for majoring in the minor sometimes. Yeah, we have a talent for majoring in the minor. That said, this issue of diaspora wars is serious because of the extent to which it affects our identity as African people. It speaks to our identity as African people and the extent to which we are able to forge the kind of social cohesion which will allow us to become the relevant kind of force that will allow us to solve some of the problems that we face collectively in today's world. And so that's not saying this issue is not important. I'm just saying generally sometimes I'm slow to respond to these things. Yeah. But respond to it I did. And that was partly because I have some personal experience with the issue. And as I said in this video that I did entitled Africans versus Caribbean, was Gina yesterday right? Yeah. My father, and I don't remember like Mama Grace B store like that because I was a child, yeah. But my father used to shop in the store of Gina yesterday, Mama Grace B, and we bought plenty gums in that shop. And so the point that I was attempting to make was the fact that when we discuss issues such as these and they flare up on social media, there's always a point at which the conversation stops and doesn't go any further. Hold on there. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Man, oh man. So based upon the time stamps, I'm gonna assume that it chipped out about 2 minutes ago. Yeah, correct me if me wrong. Let me know you can't hear me now. You can't hear me now? All right. So it chipped out about 2 minutes ago. And what was the last thing you did hear? So I think I was saying that my empress had said that something very significant, which is that Gina yesterday came up on the black comedy circuit in the UK. And there's no way that she could have come up on the black comedy circuit in the UK and not interacted in a very significant way with Africans from the Caribbean. Yes. And this is like in the 80s and 90s. All right. Probably more than 90s. There's no way you can't put in that scene without having significant interactions with Africans from the Caribbean, especially, and there was a conscious element in the black comedy circuit as well. So she would have interacted with that. Much of her support would have come through Africans from the Caribbean. Much of her fan base, for want of a better terminology, would have come from Africans from the Caribbean. She was very, very big and very, very popular on that circuit. Long before there was an international audience that knew who Gina Yesterday was. Yes, that's just a fact. Yeah. And so again, that suggests that there are some other stories to be told here that often don't get told when we have these conversations. And as I said in the video, I'm not just putting that down to Gina yesterday. Yeah. It is often the case that this beef, when it comes up, stops at the point at which we're discussing what happened in the playground in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. And that is a very relevant experience to have and to share and for us all to address. Very, very relevant. The question that I have is, why is it that so often our conversation and our analysis never seems to go beyond that point? Yes? Never seems to go beyond what happened in the playground 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, as though that's the only thing worth us having a conversation about. And what happens when the conversation stops there is that people make statements like, back in the day, you lot used to diss Africans, and by you lot, that's Caribbeans, and we're going to come back to this problematic framing in a second. But now, everybody wants to be African. And that's not completely accurate. I, for example, was raised in a family and a community of people that was not like obscure, not by far not the majority of the community, the black community in the UK, but not an obscure aspect of it, but that was very proud, very assertive about our Africanness, very publicly celebratory about our Africanness, very rejecting of Eurocentric ideals. And in the rejection of Eurocentric ideals, very vociferous in the promotion of African ideals. Yeah? And that community, that section of the black community in the UK existed too. Okay? And so again, there are some stories that need to be told that go beyond the very real playground antics that they go on between I and I from them time there. Yeah. So that was the general point that I was making. And finally, I was saying, listen, I'm just doing this for those who didn't watch my video. You can go and watch it. It's in the our videos on the channel, so you can go check it out. That within the context of the Pan-African movement, the anti-colonial movement, it is where Africans from the continent and diaspora, to a significant degree, actively were working to overcome the colonial education that we were indoctrinated with, that had us relating to each other in very destructive ways. And I was glad that I didn't say anything about this statement, because the statement that got everybody vexed was the idea that Jamaicans didn't know that we were Africans, that we were from Africa, until Roots came on the television. And that's not a completely accurate statement, and I'll come back to that. What is true, however, yeah, and for those of you who, we have an international audience, so for those of you who are not aware of the fact of what she's speaking about, there was a time, and I forget the year, that Roots came on in the 1970s, came on the television. And when I speak to my uncles and my aunties who were living here at the time, it is a fact that the broadcasting of Roots had a very significant impact upon young Africans who were living in the UK. Very significant. Yeah. Some of my uncles tell me that when they went to school the next day, it was complete separation. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You know, fight broke out. You know what I'm saying? In the school, in certain schools, because the next day certain background they want talk too greasy and have to get thumped down. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the Roots had a very big impact. So that's true. Like my uncles and my aunties who were there during that time attest to that fact. The idea, however, that we didn't know we were African is problematic framing. It would have been more accurate to say that many of us denied and rejected our Africanness, our African identity, and our African heritage. That would be a factual statement. At the same time, I know that many people didn't watch the entire interview because even though some of what Gina Yashade had to say was problematic in terms of how it was framed, it wasn't unclear if you listened to what was being said that the context for what she was talking about was colonial miseducation. Yeah. So she said this in terms of what Africans in the Caribbean were taught about what it meant to be African. And she spoke about her mother in terms of being taught negative things about what it meant to be African, over-valorizing Britain, and also thinking negatively of her brothers and sisters from the Caribbean because of what Africans from the continent were taught about who and what Africans from the Caribbean in general and Jamaica in particular were and are. The context was a colonial one. She did put it in that context. Yeah. And I also said she's a comedian. Sometimes you have to take things where a comedian say with a pinch of salt because they tend to, it's a part of the craft to skillfully exaggerate and generalize for the purpose of making a point. Yeah. So we have to be mindful of these things. And so I put out that video and there were a number of responses. One of the things that I didn't say in the video is that Gina did also say that the British are, I can't remember her exact words, but she was asked a question about how white supremacy racism is in the UK compared to the USA. And she said that, listen, the British are the supreme architects of this thing. Yeah, Britain is the big daddy. America did learn from Britain. She said that clip, that part of it didn't go viral. Yes, like the rest of these other clips. I had to watch the full thing to hear her say that. All right. And as I said, much of the conversation, particularly in the first hour, was discussing the impact of colonialism on African people. Yes. And so because of the comments were very interesting, I thought, you know what, let me do a show whereby I go through the comment section on the video that I put out and let's respond to some things. And I'm going to do that for maybe 20 minutes, half an hour. And then I will share the link if anybody wants to come through. And if there is anybody that wants to come through, give me a signal in the chat. So I'm aware of that fact. And I will share the link shortly and make that happen. All right, so let me share my screen now. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a way that to bring up the comments from another video without sharing my screen. Yeah, it would be a lot more seamless if I was able to do it another way, but I don't think I can. All right, so right here now, I could do it this way. All right. So this is the video, Kings and Queens, Africans versus Caribbeans. Was Gina Yashade right? Yeah. So I'm gonna go from the beginning and just respond to a few of the comments here. Okay. These first two, well, one is said 100% correct. This one, Sheriff S, I don't completely fully overs, but obviously this is speaking to things that I wouldn't know about because that's Sheriff S' personal life, yeah. But she's saying that Gina, her point is that Gina wasn't lying. And I hope nobody took from the video that I made that Gina was lying. Yeah. Right. Now, this is from Natron, big up Natron. Says she conflated denying being African with ignorance of it, which was her most flawed argument. And that's the point that I made in the video. And I agree with that point. Also, take what she sparks with a grain of salt, and she's a divester married to a colonizer. Now, she is married to a colonizer. That is true. Yeah. I don't know if she would be if she would be classed as a divested, or strictly speaking. She could be by default. Yeah. I don't want to go into this because that's not the subject of today. But there's a conversation to be had about how she goes from being in and around the Nation of Islam to where she's at the moment. I'm sure there's a conversation to be had there, but that's not the purpose of our conversation today. But I'm only saying that my understanding of a divester is somebody who actively rejects relationships with black men in a very aggressive and confrontational way. I don't know if she qualifies as that. At the same time, yes, she's married to a colonizer. We can't deny that. All right, so I made that point in the video. Thanks for sharing. Okay, I'm looking forward to this. And give thanks. I hope you got something from it. Oh, yeah, Etienne came back again and said, loving the logic. Caribbeans, or specifically Jamaicans, are African ambassadors across the world. So I made that point in the video that that there are Africans from Jamaica have played a significant role, and the Caribbean in general have played a significant role in the affirmation of the African identity. Yes, the affirmation, popularization, and assertion of an African identity and pride in what it means to be an African. That is a fact. All right. Now, but because that's a fact, yes, we cannot overplay the truth in that statement. Yeah, it's a true statement to make, you know, right? It's a true statement to make. But we can't go on like say the Caribbean in general and Jamaica in particular was just awash with Africans who were affirming African pride. Yeah, it's not quite as simple as that. All right, Africans throughout the Caribbean and in Jamaica who affirmed African pride were often persecuted against. Rastafari has a story to tell about that. Were rejected by communities and society, were brutalized by the state, colonial and neo-colonial. All right. And I see a lot of people saying these things. I'm saying that we have to be careful about how we frame the conversation and take into consideration our things. Yeah. Right. Now, I changed something, so I got to get back to what I did have it before. There we go. Okay. All right. And I'm going to get back into that in a second. Big up to Sosa. And I'm not going to read Sosa's comment because Sosa says she's not been into Gina Yeshere for a long time. Yeah. And Sosa is at least partly from Nigeria as well. That's partly her thing. All right. But it is a point, right? Because there's one of the things that we don't often speak about is the extent to which many of us have parentage from both Africa and the Caribbean. Yeah. Significant number of people over here who have parents from both Africa and the Caribbean or Africans from the continent who are in relationships with Africans from the Caribbean and vice versa. All right, so we have to bear that in mind. Etienne says black people get triggered way too easily. Gina did not make sweeping generalizations, those crying were not born in the 70s nor the 50s and the 30s. I say this because of the importance of context. Ask my late grandparents, are they African? And you will be told in no uncertain terms they were Jamaican or Guyanese. If in fact, it was an insult to consider themselves as African. Now, any of us, who have parents and family from the Caribbean would know that what Etienne is saying here is a very real dynamic. I have experienced this in my family, especially with the older generations. They can't tell some of them are African. Yes? Among some of us that I deal with these people all the time, them quicker to tell you about them 0.2% Irish slave driver ancestor where they rate them great grandmama than they are to embrace the overwhelming Africanness of their ancestors. That's something that we know about. Yeah. So I'm saying that to say that as a people, we have to be honest. That when Gina says people didn't know, that's an incorrect statement, right? It's just incorrect. It's not about a lack of knowledge. It's about an extreme denial. But that dynamic of rejection of African identity did exist and played out in how many of us related to our brothers and sisters from the continent. We have to be truthful about that. Even if we're challenging what she's saying, we have to be truthful about that. Yeah. All right. So that's true. Okay. So we give thanks for Etienne for being truthful about that. However, more importantly, why? Why should they call themselves African? How many generations on are we from the first slave ships that sailed from Ghana? These were my mother's and father's parents, both born in the 1930s. Marcus Garvey's philosophy, Pan-African intellectual, were not yet popularized as in the homes of the Black community. We had Eurocentric white supremacist tropes, ridden television productions, in which Africa was not represented well at all. Tarzan, I cannot think of anything more. Hollywood depictions, often of cannibals in the UK, starving Ethiopians. Let's have it real. Yeah, now that's true. The one thing I'm going to challenge here is this idea of why should they call themselves African? Yeah, and I guess I'll get into that. But the generations that have passed don't mean anything. Yeah. When it comes to how we affirm our identity and what our allegiances are to, and what our political interests are, it shouldn't really matter how many generations have passed. Recently, King Charles traveled to the United States of America on a state visit to meet and schmooze with President Donald Trump. And in Donald Trump's speech, I believe it was on the White House lawn, it was somewhere on the White House, he said words to the effect that basically there would be no United States of America if it was not for the United Kingdom of Great Britain. And much of what America developed, it inherited from the British. The British is in the DNA of America. I believe it was George Bush the Younger who said, whilst he was in the office, inside every American is a little Britain. A few weeks before, or months before, Donald Trump's speech with Charles, Secretary of State Marco Rubio was in Europe declaring that America will always be a child of Europe. The United States of America will always be a child of Europe. So it don't matter to them. Yeah. How long? And this is in the same year that the United States is celebrating its 250th anniversary of its existence. And yet they regularly reassert and reaffirm their allegiance, their loyalty, their connection ancestrally, politically with Europe. All the while, special relationship and all these euphemisms that they use. So as far as I'm concerned, it don't matter how long we've been off the continent. Yeah. In that regard, it's not a relevant factor in what we are discussing, and it is not a relevant factor in terms of whether or not we are in fact African. All right. Everything else that is said here, though, is true in terms of the depictions and where much of the anti-African indoctrination comes from. It was a very heavy onslaught. We have to acknowledge that. Jump forward. Gina was speaking from her personal experience, and she was not lying. Now, again, the dynamics of the playground is true. The statement that got people vexed is an inaccurate statement. The issue was that there was no follow-up from that in the sense of, well, what positive relationships did we develop? How did some of us, at least, overcome and work through a lot of those issues that manifested on the playground? Yeah. So like the things that I've said prior to this are also very much true. They're real. And it's not possible for Gina Yashale to not have had some experience with those things. All right. And so we have to look at the extent to which those things are not factored into a conversation like this and why. She doesn't have to be lying about what she said. But the question then becomes, what is it about these other factors that don't permit them to be involved in a conversation such as the one that we're having? The seminal screening of Roots woke up literally millions of West Indians and first-generation Black British children. We were overnight awoken, indeed traumatized by the evil committed against us by the colonial masters and what it was based upon. Yes, we had Rastafari, and I meant to say this a minute ago. Before Roots, Rastafari did debut. Yes? Before Roots was shown on the television, Rastafari was debut in the UK. I preach African identity and Africans unite and one black love and all them things there. That's not an insignificant, like Rastafari is not an insignificant factor in the sojourn of Africans in the Caribbean and in the UK. It's almost impossible to have this conversation and ignore the presence of Rastafari. You can't do that. Many African people from the Caribbean got their first education in terms of Africanness, African-centeredness, Pan-Africanism, Black pride, Black power from Rastafari. And so it didn't take Roots to do that awakening. That's not to say that Roots didn't have an impact. I'm saying it did. I've already said that. Yes? But Rastafari did debut. That needs to be a part of the conversation. It just should be a part of the conversation. It's a factor. That is no less real than what happened on the playground. Very real. Now, let me finish this sentence and I'll come back to something. Yes, we had Rastafari and sound systems. Let's not forget the sound systems, but Rastafari was involved in the sound system too, educating us, but let's have it real. Now, one thing I will say is that we often assume, yes, that we know what the enslavement process was as far as African people were concerned, yeah? We often assume that we know what the enslavement of African people entailed, what our ancestors had to face. And I've always been convinced that actually we don't know very much about the enslavement of African people, what our ancestors went through, the conditions that our ancestors suffered, what the process of enslavement really entailed. Our knowledge of it, generally speaking, in my humble estimation, is very low. You understand? We know that we were forced to work plantation and were beaten and brutalized. We know very little about the economics of the enslavement of African people. We know very little about the resistance of African people during the enslavement periods. And if we know anything at all, we often know about our little island and we know a name or two. Like if you come from Jamaica, you know about Nanny of the Maroons and Taki. And you might have hear about Sam Sharp and maybe Paul Bogle. Yes? Like we lack a lot of knowledge. Yeah? We lack a whole heap. And so many of us championing these conversations sometimes go on like say there's a generally high level of knowledge among African people. Right now, I'm speaking specifically from the Caribbean about enslavement. Yeah. And I'm saying that's not the case. I've visited 3 countries on the African continent. And I can tell you that the same dynamic exists among Africans on the continent. Knowledge of the enslavement and how it affected West and Central Africa in particular, very low. Knowledge of colonization from the Berlin Conference onwards and how it affected indigenous people groups, generally speaking, very low. Why am I saying this? We have to come to terms with the fact that to a significant degree, a lot of the beef and the diaspora wars that exist among us is being fought from a severe place of ignorance across the diaspora, continent and diaspora. But because we assume that we know all these things, that we have a proper general understanding from our own perspective, we relate to each other out of ignorance rather than out of knowledge. Yeah? And so that's the context in which something like Roots comes in and has a significant impact, because now you're literally seeing a visual representation of a man being kidnapped and trafficked across the ocean and trying to rebel and getting slapped down and trying to run away and getting his foot cut off. And his daughter take away from him, can't see her again. Yes? Seeing direct dramatization of what our ancestors went through. And for many, there's not a lot of, this is why one of the reasons why I never say, la, me tired for film about slavery. Because we act like there's a whole heap of films about slavery. There's not that many dramatizations and films that depict the enslavement of African people. There's not many that tell a myriad and variety of stories of African people in the enslavement experience of the Ma'afa. Not an Ogosso. Yeah? And in a world like this, whereby audiovisual media is a very significant factor in terms of how people are sensitized to different dynamics, that is an extreme deficit. So no, we don't really know. There are even less stories that detail, that go into the colonial experience of Africans on the continent and in the diaspora. How many of you have ever watched a film that is directly about the colonized experience? of Africans in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, or in Haiti? How many of you have watched a film that is depicting the experience of Africans in Ghana under colonialism, or in Congo under colonialism? There are one or two about South Africa, and most of those are really glorifying white people. Most of them. That's a reality. But our environment is not full of narrative that sensitize us to the dynamics of that experience. We have to be real about this. Yeah. So knowledge and sensitivity around these things is generally very low among us as a people, continent and diaspora. My mother, who recently returned to Ghana for her naming ceremony at 70, has known since roots that she was African. Well, you seem to be contradicting yourself there, because that's what Gina actually said. Then her family tracing their family tree before these blood tests confirmed our Ghanaian roots. Let's have it read, dogs. Jano. Also, everyone wanted to be Jamaican since stepping off the Windrush or banana boats. Joke, I don't care. So let's get some perspective when attacking Gina, who is comedy royalty. Too many sensitive blacks walking this earth, triggered by anything remotely whatever. Yes, there is trauma, but let's not live in it. We are greater than slavery. Our history began things. Let us concern ourselves more deeply with more deeply rooted matters, such as the promotion and support of the black family. Now, I would agree with that last sentence. I would say, however, that we cannot say that what she said was real, yeah, but then say that too many of us are too sensitive, and then let's not live in trauma. Because one could argue, like, if I'm just being fair, that the omission of those other stories that I'm referring to would seem to be an example of living in the trauma, if that makes sense. If we're not living in the trauma, then our conversations don't begin and end at Bodigwan and the playground in the 70s and the 80s. Yeah. So you know what I'm saying? So yeah, if people responding to Gina are being hypersensitive, then maybe the conversation that sparked all of this was also a manifestation of hypersensitivity. I'm just trying to be reasoning in all fairness. But I'm also saying that when you watch the whole conversation, it's quite clear, and possibly not clear enough, but it was clear to me at least, like I should say, probably not emphatic enough, but it was clear to me at least that there was a colonial framing, a colonial context in terms of colonial education that was put on what she was saying. Because she didn't speak about Jamaicans not really African. She spoke about her mother preferring her to have white friends than friends from Jamaica because of what she was taught. She spoke about her mother believing that everything British was good because of what she was taught. You understand? Yeah. So we have to be, like, in all fairness, like we have to be fair. We have to be balanced in our reasoning. Yeah. All right. By the way, kings and queens, the link is in the chat. The link is in the chat. So for anybody who wants to come through and share their perspective, feel free to do so. And if you just want to hear me talk, then feel free to do that too. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it would be an honor and a blessing to hear from the item. So the link is in the chat. Feel free to come through if you want to say something upon the conversation. Yeah. Next comment from Rarilo. I don't know how would that go. East London, the 1970s and 80s, before political correctness, it was a different world. The black race was not a monolith. Let's be real. The mere fact there was a conscious movement was to challenge the unawareness and the ignorance of the time. Well, that's true. Yeah. The issue, though, that I think people are having is that the statement that went viral. Now, when you watch the whole thing, it is clear that Gina Yeshere is not saying that that the ignorance was exclusive to Africans from the Caribbean or exclusive to Africans from Jamaica. She made reference to how certain levels of ignorance do manifest themselves among Africans from the continent. But I believe that a lot of the backlash is being received in the way that she spoke, as though Jamaicans have this identity complex and Africans somehow don't. Yes. And for again, having watched it, I'm sure, like, I'm still saying there's more that she could have said, but it's clear that that's not the angle that she was coming from. Yeah. And I think a lot of people have received it that way. And so we need to understand where that comes from, but we also need to check the fact that many of us have not watched the whole statement. All right. But that it is true that much of us who were on a certain, my parents and grandparents and auntie and uncle them, when we began to affirm this African pride, Africa, our main challenge came from other members of our community. You know, the weird thing about it is, coming back to that point about it's not just Africans from the diaspora. I remember being in school and a brethren from Nigeria said to me, "I'm not African, I'm Nigerian." It took me days to calculate what the brethren was saying. I didn't understand it. Yeah. Man said, now, in interacting with our brothers and sisters from Nigeria, I've learned that that's not a completely uncommon statement. All right, I'm not African, I'm Nigerian. Yeah, like, because they're coming from a place of, man, just Nigerian. Like, man ain't got no connection to the rest of these Africans, innit? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That is the perspective that some of us come from, right? On the continent. So these dynamics do exist. Is the point I'm making. All right, let's go forward. That is a dual dynamic of existence, but to brush aside everyone with the same brush is not correct, especially in the light of supporting evidence to the contrary. And we live in a very versus society: black versus white, man versus woman, African versus Caribbean. With those categories, there are subgenres of versus. For example, Jamaican versus other Caribbeans, true statement. Ghana versus Nigeria, a society of multiverses, dismissing the concept of a universe existence. Yeah, no, that's true. All right. The only thing that black social media love more than diaspora war is gender war, and vice versa. You know what I mean? Right. Then I come to these two very interesting comments. The first is, being a Caribbean British Pan-Africanist has to be hard. You really have to deny, downplay, and be dishonest about certain things to lean into this folks community. Now, to be frank, I probably shouldn't even have read that comment because there's not much to respond to here because I don't know what it means. So maybe if the individual is listening, they can oh, okay. And they've expanded here. And to be clear, I mean the black British community. Caribbean Pan-Africanists here tend to be dismissive towards other Caribbean people, gaslighting, and do not call out the disrespect towards their own. Now see, I don't know what this means. Yeah, that Caribbean Pan-Africanists tend to be dismissive towards other Caribbean people. Oh, sorry, I realized this is not on the screen. 1 second. So yeah, I don't know what this means. Yeah, I have no idea what this means. Maybe somebody can shed light on this for me. What they mean by Caribbean Pan-Africanists here tend to be dismissive towards other African people. And by the way, I'm noticing this idea of the black British community, and community is in inverted commas. All right, so there's some subtext here, and so I'm gonna presume, based upon this and the other comment from this individual, that this individual is a part of the anti-African, self-hating Negro class. All right, among the item. Okay, Now, that latter part is feeding into the whole African versus Caribbean dynamic. That Caribbean, Pan-Africanists who are Caribbean people are gaslighting. So apparently, this seems to be suggesting that there's regular peer disrespect coming from Africans from the continent towards Africans from the Caribbean. And because we're Pan-Africanists, we don't have anything to say about it. So this is just a random statement that cannot be proven, even substantiated in any way, shape, or form. And so, yeah, you know, we don't know. Let's just move on in it, all right, and get something more substantive. Then the individual, same individual, I don't know how to pronounce this name, says also, you mentioned that no music uplifts Africa like reggae does. That's not exactly what I said. I'll come back to that. So I ask, has Africa produced a number of songs lamenting, celebrating, and honoring the diaspora? If so, what songs would people recommend? Okay. Now, this is a key dynamic, yeah, of self-hating. Social media army. But one, two, 1, 2. Okay, I realized my mic went there. So let me repeat the statement in case it dropped out when I was reading it. So the question is from this individual. Also, you mentioned that no music uplifts Africa like reggae does. And again, that's not strictly speaking what I said, but I'll come back to exactly what I said. So I ask, has Africa produced a number of songs lamenting, celebrating, and honoring the diaspora? And if so, what songs will people recommend? Now, this is a key tactic of self-hating Negro social media army. Bots and otherwise. They create a standard that is usually based upon a false premise and impose a question based upon that false premise and require you to answer it within the confines of that false premise. First of all, let me clarify the statement that I actually made. What I said was, I think you'll be hard pushed to find a genre of music that uplifts Africa and African identity more than reggae music, for example. Okay. That doesn't mean that there are not other genres of music that have uplifted Africa and African identity. It just means that reggae has done it to an extent whereby I don't think you can find a genre that has done it more. There are genres that have done it significantly, yes, possibly equally, but just not more. Significant African representation in soca and calypso, for example. It's just that soca and calypso doesn't have the international, or hasn't enjoyed as much international acclaim as reggae has over the last 50, 60 years. So I'm going to answer this question about the music in a second. But first, let me address the false premise. Yes, let me address the false premise. The statement reads, you mentioned that no music uplifts Africa like reggae does. So has Africa produced a number of songs lamenting, celebrating, and honoring the diaspora? Now, implicit in that question is a significant false premise. Yes? Because what the question presumes is that when Africans from the diaspora affirm an African identity and big up Africa, we are bigging up something other than ourselves. That we're doing Africans on the continent a favor. That we're bigging up and uplifting Africans on the continent to the exception of ourselves. We're not included in that which we are uplifting. Yes? As though when Peter Tosh said, no matter where you come from, as long as you're a black man, you are African, he was talking about Africans in Nigeria and in Ghana and Congo and Kenya and Tanzania and Sudan and South Africa. As though when Peter Tosh said, I'm not going to give it up until Africa and all Africans are free, that he was talking about Africans in Senegal and Angola and Somalia and Ethiopia, and not Africans in Jamaica and Barbados and Trinidad and Suriname and Haiti. That when culture, Joseph will say, I'm a humble African, that he wasn't talking about himself. He was talking about Africans on the continent. This is ridiculous reasoning. Let us be clear, brothers and sisters, that the affirmation and the assertion of the African identity from Africans in the Caribbean was an assertion of who we are, not who Africans on the continent are. And to the extent that it asserted Africans on the continent, it was ourselves as relational to Africans on the continent. So we weren't doing Africans on the continent any favors by celebrating Africa and our Africanness. This is something that we did for our own self. When the basic thing with the right from his African, Kuya Pupa, she never did talk about Africans on the continent. She was talking to Africans in the diaspora about our own Africanness and saying that we are African people. And we must celebrate the Africanness of our culture. So to affirm Africa and Africanness is not doing something for Africans on the continent separate and distinct from Africans in the diaspora. It's a false premise. Nonsense argument that. So that's for them idiot argument there. Yes. And let us now actually answer the question. The idiot question. Yeah, because sometimes you have to answer some idiot question, you know. So the question now presumes that because we as Africans in the diaspora, when we celebrate Africa, we're somehow doing Africans on the continent a favor. It is now for Africans on the continent to reciprocate. Yes? And do songs about the diaspora. Now, I'm noticing as well, between these two comments, I suspect it's one of them British Caribbean, type individuals, who likes to reject an African identity. And so, Pan-Africanism is not reciprocal, that kind of nonsense. Genre, Afrobeat, original Afrobeat. Yes, genre, original Afrobeat. Founded by the great Fela Anikulapo Kuti. Fela was getting his early politicization from his mother in Nigeria, travels to Britain, travels to the UK, interacts with Africans here, travels to the USA, interacts with Africans there, involves himself in the Black Power movement, and develops this genre of music which is explicitly political, based upon his original Yoruba inspirations and neighboring indigenous communities like the Igbo inspirations in Nigeria, based upon what he learns from Africans in the diaspora. And consistently, through his music and through his pronouncements, is bigging up names, in particular names like Omowale, Malcolm X. Partly because the reading of the autobiography of Omowale Malcolm X was a significant aspect of his educational process. And you hear him and his children name these people, yes, in his songs. Fela had a girlfriend when he was staying in LA called Sandra Isadore, who visited him in Nigeria. And he wrote a song and got her to sing lead on that song. The song's called Upside Down. Brilliant song. Everything upside down. Fela also did a song, or two songs, and then with Roy Ayers, great vibraphonist, rare groove, jazz musician, composer, called Africa, Center of the World. And he also collaborated with him on a song called 2000 Black, Gotta Be Free. So Roy Ayers played on Center of the World, Africa, which was composed principally by Fela, and Fela played on 2000 Black, Gotta Be Free, principally composed by Roy Ayers. And Fela Kuti, as an individual, and his band was consistently talking about Pan-Africanism and celebrating and including the diaspora within what he was talking about. Within, there's a poet by the name of Ikunga who has a song called The Bombs. Yes? The bombs are made in London. The bombs are made in London, but the bombing are for Somalia. The bombing are for Sudan. Yeah, something like that he said, right? So, and at the end of that song, he says, African Union, now union for Africa. But then he says, but Jamaica, no there. Haiti, no there. Black America, no there. Panama, no there. He's saying that it's a contradiction for there to be an African Union and Africans in the diaspora are not part of the African Union. That's Ikunga, the Afrobeat poet. Finally, I will call listen to Fuse ODG's. This is more recent now, last two albums. Yeah, I'm not even giving you songs. I'm giving you the last two albums from Fuse ODG. The albums are basically a celebration of the African diaspora. And he's explicitly gone to places in the Caribbean and done songs about women from Barbados and Trinidad and all these things. Celebrating the African diaspora. All right? And that is to say nothing of the extent to which Africans from the diaspora found a lot of their, especially reggae artists, found a lot of their major audience in Africa. There's nowhere in the world that Culture, Josephine, and people like Burning Spear and Bush Banton, yes, and Sizzla and Capital are loved and appreciated more than on the African continent. All right, so let's just bear that all those things in mind. But having answered the stupid question, I want to reassert the fact that this premise is when in the diaspora celebrate Africa, we are not doing anyone any favors. We are not celebrating anybody other than ourselves. Yes? Bearing in mind other things like Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah and his relationships and activism with Africans from the diaspora prior to and during and through the All African People's Revolutionary Party, his education of people like Baba Kwame Ture, yes, and putting him in position to organize the African diaspora as a part of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, considering His Imperial Majesty I Selassie I building schools in the Caribbean and apportioning land Ethiopia for Africans in the diaspora, considering Baba Mwalimu Julius Nyerere making Tanzania a safe haven for Africans in the diaspora who are fleeing persecution for being revolutionary activists in places like the United States of America and the Caribbean in the 1970s. Yeah? Bearing all those dynamics in mind, this is an idiot question. Kings and Queens, the link is in the chat. If you want to come interact with I, feel free to do so. The link is in the chat. Link is in the chat. Oh, as I said, somebody come through. Let's see who is. Your devices are not connecting, Kwame. Your devices are not connecting. Oh, that I wonder if that's Kwame Obwaje, because we just got to his comment on this thing now as well, which says Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. Yep, I agree. Dr. Talawa, hoping that you and the family are well. King, if you're listening, says we have to learn to make ideological and political distinctions. So I'm not entirely sure what he means, but I gather from it that what he's referring to specifically, but I would agree. As much as Gina yesterday in the interview, like she goes quite significantly into, you know, her Edo ancestry and her Edo family lineage and the British colonial relationship with the Edo people and the Benin Bronzes. She licked out against the British for teeth in the Benin Bronzes and wanted to hold on to it. She spoke about tattoos that she has on her body that are Adinkra symbols. Because, and she says, which she said she couldn't find a Nigerian equivalent of that kind of symbolism. So she's obviously not familiar with Nsabidi, yeah? Because that would be, and it's not technically that's of the Igbo people, Nsabidi, but that would be a Nigerian equivalent if, you know, that if that was a justifiable terminology. All right. But it's interesting that she was looking for African symbolism to adorn her body with, and she chose a Dinka symbol, even though that is not a part of her direct people group, as in the Edo people, which is a Pan-African sensibility. Yes, she's celebrating another African group's creation as a part of her own heritage. It's a very Pan-African thing to do. Having said that, Gina yesterday has never claimed to be a revolutionary, a Pan-Africanist, African-centered, Afrocentric, you know what I mean? Like, of any description. I don't know her to ever have claimed anything like that. And in fact, some of her statements in the past could lead you to believe that she rejects that kind of inclination. Although her statements in this particular interview suggest that she has some inclinations towards that kind of vibration. But the idea is that when people often make these kind of statements, they are often correct, not coming from a Pan-African ideological perspective, a revolutionary perspective, a race perspective, a Black nationalist, African-centered perspective, right? Oftentimes, the ideology that these people are coming from is integrationist. The framing of the conversation, and when I say integrationist, I mean to become a part of the dominant system, or background imperialism, supremacy, and capitalism, right? That's the general framing of a conversation that is very few of us are actively seeking to break away. And so are therefore having the conversation within that context, right? That's the reality. Yes. So I assume that's where my brother is going. Brother Kwame has dropped off. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap up in like 10 minutes if nobody comes through still. Coming to Meloman as a comment. And maybe I'll make this the last comment that I actually address. Yeah. But let's see. Valuable reasoning as usual, give thanks. But the biggest problem with these discourse is when either side pretends that their side is not dominated by the ignorance, which I think I've said already, politically uneducated. No group of black people is Pan-African dominant, and the masses are of every ethnic group of blacks is anti-black and anti-African. The only difference that allowed Gina to speak from a perceived moral high ground being that continental Africans cannot deny being African, since they're literally on the continent. At the same time, they demonstrate the same propensity to disassociate from African identity and cling more to tribal identities the same way a Jamaican ignorant does. The problem begins with taking offense to actions of the ignorant from any or either ethnicity of black people, not recognizing and giving them grace for the fact that they are a majority, ignorant, and nothing better should be expected. Now, there's a lot of wisdom in this statement, right? Yes, sir. Yeah. Only have wisdom. The point that I want to highlight is the idea of the fact that Gina and others from Nigeria or elsewhere on the continent, being from Africa, didn't give them the get out clause. And in the video that sparked this reasoning, I spoke about the fact that for many of us from the Caribbean living in the UK, the fact of being able to say West Indian, yeah, Jamaican, Guyanese, Trini, Grenadian, etc., meant that many of us thought that we had a get out clause from identifying with being African that our brothers and sisters directly from the continent did not have. And so when you consider the fact, this is we have to, if we're going to work through these issues, we have to work through them from a position of understanding. If we are going to be honest and real, we have to contend with the extent to which that is a reality. That the ability, the capacity to say West Indian gave many of us a vantage point to attack our own Africanness and our brothers and sisters from the continent from that position of ignorance, in a way that our brothers and sisters on the continent did not have. Yeah? And so that is a part of the dynamic that we have to actually address as Africans from the Caribbean. All right? But Melaman is correct. Yeah? The Africans on the continent are no less ignorant than the rest of we. Right? That is a reality. Yes? That many of us who are championing the Pan-African, African Unite, we are a minority among our people. And by the way, I'm very aware that the semi-final of the World Cup has started and many people want to go watch that, even though it's Spain versus France. To me, I don't follow football enough. When it comes to the World Cup, to me, a lot of mercy. I think that I follow football regular. That's how the thing go. You know what I mean? And shout out to my brothers and sisters who are in and jump on no hype. Lightning, earthquake, and thunder. We not support England at all. No care how much African them put on the team. We not support not a England. You not go around here. That way I say. Some of it, there's sorry kings and queens. For those who the international audience, there's a big debate right about now because enough Africans in the UK for the first time in ever, like in the last few World Cups, are beginning to celebrate and support England, and one cost the rest of it because we're not support. We are all the original order that supports our brothers and sisters in teams from Africa and the Caribbean, and then South America, Brazil in particular. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, right? We're not supporting not England. We're not business. All right. Anyway, let me just see if I missed out anything in Melaman's statement. So yeah, now having said that, having watched the whole thing, I don't believe that Gina paints the picture that it was a one-sided thing, that it was only Africans from the Caribbean who had this level of ignorance. She doesn't actually do that. The problem is that the strongest statement that she made was in that direction. Like, it's that no statement that she made like compares to the emphaticness of the statement. Jamaicans didn't know that they were from Africa until Roots, right? Just what I'm saying. But again, she spoke about the fact that her mother came to Britain and didn't teach her language because she believed that they were British and that British was good, and that basically it wasn't worth them learning their language. Yeah, they were born in Britain, they were British, and so they didn't need to be taught Edo. Yeah, she spoke about the fact that her mother didn't want her to hang around with Jamaicans because of what she was taught about them. Yes, like, so these things were said. Okay, like, I'm just trying to be fair to the history. All right, I like to be fair, you know what I mean. But you're right. The general sentiment here is one that I agree with. Not surprising, right? Let me see now. Mr. Set Imhotep, your camera is off, so I don't know. I'm gonna bring it to. Oh, it's on now. Okay, all right, cool. Hold on there, my Trinity brethren. Yes, my Trinity brethren. Well, go on.
Peace to the big dog, Shakara.
You good?
Peace to everybody under the sound of my voice. Actually, no, I'm a little bit under the weather, but been a while since I had a live stream that we were allowed to join into. So I said, nah, I have to come and touch base a little bit with the community. So you wanted to say anything before I continue?
No, man, go on through, King. Good to hear your voice still. You know what I mean? And I appreciate your commentary.
Actually, I appreciate that. Right. So, actually, I'll give you some news that's kind of relevant to the topic that we have at hand. But first, I should caveat for the audience and say I haven't actually seen the interview. So any comments I'm making is basically on your commentary rather than on what she would have said herself. And really, it's about the topic in general, right? So, slight tangent. Had a family reunion the other day, and I have a peculiar family where half of my mother's side of the family married into Nigerians. So they are Igbo as well, actually. Right? Okay. So we had a family reunion recently, and the Osakwe is their surname. The whole clan came down and, reconnected with a lot of them. Came to realize that when I was a child, talking about 2, 3, 4 years old, I actually was living in the same house with one of them. And so we actually had a long-time relationship, right? So that's one. Secondly, at the same family reunion, I came to realize that my mother's uncle, my great uncle, married Ma Entu's first cousin. So now, by marriage as well, I have that link to Ma Entu, and I'm feeling so blessed, right? That's okay. Right, so forget my personal business now. I only really say that to bring in the notion of this concept really kind of complicated in the Caribbean, right? At least in my experience. In that, at least since I've been growing up, people are very willing to say, they might say, I know African, I black. Not really deep in the kind of the contradictions in between there. And I think if we had to explain it, they would suggest that being black is about being diasporic, and it's a separate and it's a new ethnic identity. But most of these people are not thinking about it that deeply. You understand what I mean? Yes. So it really is kind of complicated, because even in my own family, folks will say things like, I'm not African, I'm Trinidadian or I'm Trinbagonian. And I'm trying to get them to recognize that those are not mutually exclusive identifiers, you know? Yes. And one, because one can be a Trinbagonian Indian, one can be a Trinbagonian Chinese, etc. You understand what I mean? And those two things are not. So I think there's kind of a
and you can't tell the Indian them in a Trinidad say they're not Indian at all. You can't tell them that.
I even go see what I say. Yes, but to be clear, you are very right about that. That would be very unwise of you to do, you know? So it really is kind of, because as I have grown older, and maybe it is because of how, I mean, this is not a good example of it, but how I generally dress when I'm going out, the sorts of interactions I'm having with Trinbagonians is colored now but it doesn't seem to me that people are as abrasive or what's the word I'm looking for? Apprehensive, really, about identifying with Africanness, if not necessarily being African, as they used to be when I was growing up. To be African was to be dirty, was to be uncivilized, was to be a devil worshipper, etc., etc. And I'm sure the Eric Williams generation still holds a lot of those perspectives, you know.
Absolutely.
But as the younger folks are coming up, and as I say, maybe it's because of how I carry a staff, etc. You know, I'm always in my robes and whatever. People interact with me and Africanness differently through me. But in my experience, at least in Trinidad and Tobago, it seems really to have improved a lot. People don't have ideological grounding; they are not Pan-Africanists, and so they have no understanding of the theory behind Pan-Africanism or the history behind Pan-Africanism. So they won't identify with it, but they are becoming more, especially speaking to the House as much as I can, especially under this present administration, where seemingly there is an overt attack on African cultural touchstones and celebrations in the country, that people are becoming a lot more, they're identifying a lot more with the African part of Trinbago. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
A good example of that is my sister, who, when Cambole was coming up, I saw that you were sharing some of the advertisement for Cambole, right?
Yes.
Those videos, those TikToks, went extremely viral during this Cambole season coming up. Extremely viral, right? To the point where I don't know if I've seen you share any Cambole posts before, but it kind of, in addition to it having gone super viral in Trinbago, talking about, let's say, statistically, based on the amount of views it have, statistically about 1/6 of the population in Trinidad and Tobago saw those videos. You understand what I mean? Really, massive numbers. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
It kind of suggested to me, because I've been saying for a while, it feels like there is a Caribbean cultural renaissance underway. It is just stirring up.
I agree. Yeah. Go on.
Oh, yeah. Stirring up in the underbellies. And this, as I said, the contradictions are becoming more overt and more extreme under this present administration, where people's lack of identification, especially in Africans, in contrast with Indians in this country, specifically that comparison. The amount of group economics, community economics that Indians do in this country, the amount of, and I'm not necessarily bashing them for it. I just wish there was a societal framework. The way that they exhibit their, if I could use the term, positive nepotism. You understand what I mean? They will actively look for opportunities to advance their family or people who they're interested, to make sure and keep the money in the community. When we contrast that with the way that Africans operated in Trinidad and Tobago, now that this administration is taking away a lot of things from the working class across the board, but from the working class in Trinidad and Tobago, people need to find more avenues of solidarity, and I think therefore the area is ripe for political education and getting people to really identify with. It's gonna happen naturally anyway, but we need a little bit of guidance on how people identify with their people, going forward.
Yes. Just to piggyback on one thing that you said, that there's a bit of a renaissance taking place in terms of the African Caribbean identity and culture. I agree. That I obviously I'm not in Trinidad, so I wasn't able to experience that dynamic in the same way. But Carnival season, through February and March, a lot of videos went viral from various different islands over that period that were explicitly just it's impossible to deny the Africanness of the culture. In my head, two places. One was Martinique, and the other was Brazil. Yeah, and Brazil Carnival Parade is a mad thing. Every year, it's mad. Yeah, in terms of the grandeur of the mass and the costume and the rete, right? But this year, and they had a specific, and now they do, there's usually some kind of Orisha veneration, but this year the Orisha veneration videos just went viral on another scale that I've not seen before.
Is that
like,
the ones where they have like the floats of the different Himalaya in the river?
Float. Yeah, right.
Yes. Okay, I did see that this year. Okay.
Yeah, right. Mad, like, and I tend to pay attention. So I generally see these things, but the way people were sending around these videos, and then you had a lot of videos from Martinique, and a lot of their mass here was like Juve. So like there was no sound system on the road, no big truck. It's man and woman with drum, yeah, you know what I'm saying, walking, and like there's hundreds of people chanting the same song, yeah, but in a particular representation of whatever they represent. And sometimes you know, sometimes you don't know. But I'm saying that there was a lot of that this year, you know, for Carnival in the February-March season. So I do believe so. I think, and in Trinidad as well, like I know that the Orisha community is growing, you know what I'm saying, like out there, like, and their presence on YouTube in particular is a mad thing. Like, and there's more like when I listen to Calypso now, like the Calypso Monarch and them thing there, it's just not unusual for me to hear Ogunwonire. Like this is normal. Like you know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? So Singing Sandra and Mama Ella have been doing their work, right? And there's a whole generation of under them that have been raised in this Orisha vibration and are bringing it into the Calypso in particular. Yeah, but not just the Calypso. I don't know how much you're into you've got into Freetown Collective. Yeah.
I know the members. I'm not a big music listener, but yes, I know the music and I like a lot of the music.
Right. So you'll find that in there as well, right? Is the point I'm making, right? So it's like, you know what I mean? In fact, probably my favorite song out of Trinidad this year is one of their songs. Called oh gosh.
Take Me Home?
No. Keepers of the Flame.
Okay.
Keepers of the Flame, yeah. It's Take Me Home is a bad tune, so don't get twisted. But Keepers of the Flame, that's the one that they performed for the Manch Grass, yeah. But what's it called? But yeah, but in that song, he actually mentions Ella Anderlan and Singing Sandra in the song, right? You know what I'm saying? So we know that energy is growing. And then like one of my dreams is to come when I come to Trinidad, me have to drum with Ajibola, yeah, like me have to drum with Ajibola, yeah, because you say Ajibola.
Okay, right.
Ajibola, yeah, you know, we have to drum with Ajibola, you know what I mean? That's
you don't take bad. No,
you know what I mean?
On that note, I am not at liberty to say probably even what I'm about to say, so I'm going to keep it very concise. You're aware of Know Your Caribbean? I think that's a good one, right?
Yes.
Know Your Caribbean. Collaborated with Camberley on something.
I know,
yes?
yeah. I'm aware of that. Yeah, it was. I know they were together. Put it that way. Yeah.
Okay, Asha. I don't want to say too much.
Yeah, I don't know what they collaborated on, but I know she was there, and I know that her and Sister Attila was on Vibes. Yeah, so we know that they
actually just left. Dropping off the session who you shared, who was doing the Camberley promo. Dropping it off. She was meeting with Attila, so I just talked to Attila. Okay, back here to come and make sure and join the live stream before we left.
All right.
Really things are going on. You're speaking about you spoke about Ajibola. There was something I wanted to. I just shared a link in the back chat here. You were speaking about certain Orisha groups, like it becoming big on YouTube, right? This particular video that I've shared is Ajibola is actually a part of this group.
Oh no, listen, me watch this video regular.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
I was sharing it to suggest that maybe unless you had something else you wanted to close the show with, that maybe we could close the show with it and show the
Let's
audience.
do that, yo. Yeah, man. Okay, I'll share you. But yeah, I watch this video regularly. In fact, all parts of it. So part 1, part 2, and there's a part 3 after this one as well. Where they're talking about Ogun, and yeah, the representation in Trinidad. Is very strong. So we'll play that video, and if you want to get an experience of Orisha traditions from Trinidad perspective, this is a good channel to follow, because they do post a lot of content, and they're quite good at in terms of what they present to the world as well.
And I also I think it would be remiss of me not to drop this name on the broadcast, just for the future. And if anybody wants to look him up now, they can. Yeah. It's a gentleman named Adeshoga, surname Somorin. His father is a Babalawo. He is a Babalawo. He is Nigerian. He's a first generation Trinbagonian. And is, in my experience thus far, the best able to impart knowledge about Isheshe to English. He expressed his own opinion, his own lamentation. I hope I'm not misrepresenting him to say his own lamentation that so much of the transport of information about Isheshe, the Orisha tradition as we call it in Trinidad, the transmission of Isheshe and the transportation to Trinbago was done by people who did not have a good command of the English language, right? He now does have a good command of the English language. He's a rapper, he's a singer, etc. But also specifically a great command of Trini English, and therefore a fantastic teacher. So I just want to put his name out there before.
Are you spelling it? Are you spelling it?
ADE.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah.
SOGA.
And then, yep.
That's his artist name, so you could just find him by that on YouTube. He has a what's his Instagram? One sec, give me 1 sec, maybe 2 minutes.
Okay, I think I found him still. All right, cool. Give thanks for that, yo. Some love for 5 new music still. I'm saying, brothers and sisters, here, because there's a strong Orisha tradition developing in soca and calypso at the moment. And I said this on my Facebook the other day. It would be beautiful if an Orisha tradition developed in reggae music. Even that, or a stronger Kumina tradition, yeah? I shouldn't say either. And why am I saying this? Because so this is one of the things that when I was saying earlier, that enough of us don't know yet. Because enough of we like to run up and down the internet talking like so we know how things go. And I've said to people before, as Jamaican as we say we are, most I don't know, ask uno for sing a Kumina song. Kumina is essential and fundamental to Jamaican culture. And if I ask 99.9% of Jamaicans to sing a Kumina song, most of we couldn't sing a Kumina song. If I said Malembe, yes, which is a greeting among the Congo people, the Kumina people them in Jamaica, most Jamaicans wouldn't know what the hell it is I am saying. And the proof and evidence of this is that in recent months, the biggest thing in dancehall is the Hill and Gully rhythm. Yes, produced by the Genius. Yeah. Now, when me did go Portland, Nannytown, in Jamaica in 2017, I was there for my initiation in terms of Kemetu yoga. And because we was in Portland, our initiation took place in Nannytown, went to Nanny Falls, and the Maroon community embraced us and welcomed us and so on. And I'm sure, and I can't confirm this yet because I need to find the images and the pictures. There was a little girl among the people them called Hope. And I bought an album from them called Granny Nanny Como, which is like a disc of maroon drumming and chanting. That little girl, when the Hill and Gully rhythm dropped, she did a video that went viral doing a Kumina medley. She's now got an official song on the rhythm. Her name is Hope Vocals, yeah? And when she was on the song chanting, she started the song Malembe, Malembe, Asase, Asase, and all these things, right? And then she went into the chant and 2 or 3 different Kumina songs she was chanting. 19 how long Jamaicans are asking her, what are you saying in the song? What does the song mean? Now, I'm not diss nobody, you know. This is not to ridicule anybody, because all of us would have to learn these things. It just so happens that I've done some actual study on Kumina. So like when she says things like Manoka boy, that I know Manoka is a Congo ancestor that the Kumina people name, they preserve that name as a Kumina ancestor, Manoka Mvula. Yes, from Congo. Just when they call a saltwater bongo, in other words, a man who brought from Africa over to Jamaica. Yeah, from Congo over to Jamaica. They call him saltwater bongo. But most of us don't know what she talk about in the song. Yeah. So I'm saying that there's a whole aspect of our and then in that context, Kwame, your devices are not working. And by the way, Hoodoo, I didn't get your whole name, but it's a Hoodoo something or another that came backstage and dropped off. Feel free to come back. Yeah, Hoodoo something or another. Yeah, feel free to come back. Now, what I was saying is, a whole conversation developed because there were some people who were saying, well, all of the tunes on the Hill and Gully rhythm that is based upon a traditional folk song, Hill and Gully Rido, Hill and Gully. Hilangoli Raido, Hilangoli, Ayabendo, and Hilangoli, right? It's a folk song that Pitney sing a lot of them things there. But most of the songs on the rhythm gone underneath gyal. Yeah, like gone underneath and deep in a gyal, right? That was what most of the songs were about. And so people were saying, well, really, like we couldn't find nothing else to talk about than underneath gyal, right? You know what I'm saying? On a rhythm of such cultural significance. Yeah, like we must find something, yeah, for talk about than girl crutches. And so this song did exactly that. Yeah, it was a traditional Kumina maroon chanting song, but most of us were not in a position to embrace it from a position of being able to relate to it, like knowing what she was saying in the song. And so that I've gone round in circles to say that there's a whole what's the word, infusion that needs to take place, whereby more aspects of our culture are infused in our musical expression, that it's normal and natural to us. And I see that happening with Isheshe, with Orisha in soca and calypso at the moment. I see it becoming something that our people are becoming more familiarized with, so that it's not strange to hear Ogu Onire. That's not strange. It's not becoming strange anymore. I hear it so regularly. Yes, right? In and around the soca and the calypso scene, that's not happening in the same way in dancehall. Like, so the Kumina is not infusing in the same way. So and also, me tired for listening to reggae music and hear about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Israel, and Isaac and Jacob, seed of Daniel and Solomon. More hear about Odudua. Yeah. More hear about Shango. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's so I'm saying that it would be beautiful if an Orisha tradition develops in reggae music and a Kumina tradition develops in reggae music, reggae and dancehall, I should say, as well. So that the Africanness of our thing is so, you know, expressive and fundamentally explicit in what we are doing. So big up the brothers and sisters in Trinidad. You know what I'm saying? I was listening to there's a song on the point that you made about the current administration. There's a calypso by a sister called Karen Ashe, who she's got a song. I forget the name of the song, but she's licking out against political tribalism in Trinidad. And she's definitely critiquing the current administration in that song as well. But in another song that she's got, which is called Farewell Chantwell, which is in fact a tribute to Singing Sandra. The Orisha vibration is in there as well. So I'm seeing it all over the place in Trinidad. And so I'm saying in Jamaica, our music must begin to reflect these things as well. And unfortunately, the Hill and Gully rhythm was an opportunity to do that has not been maximized to its full potential. But we give thanks for those like Hope vocals who have contributed something to that thing. Go ahead, Imhotep.
Well, not to too intensely oppose or contradict what you just said. Because in the first place, I think you have more experience with it than I do. I will say, in addition to that it, and maybe buttressing the point we were making earlier about the Caribbean cultural renaissance, that I only know about the history of the Hill and Gully rhythm, or sample, maybe I should say it like that, because of content that came out this year, explaining that, maybe also lamenting the same experience that we were speaking about, but explaining that. So at the same time as that is happening, there also is seemingly this the zeitgeist is shifting toward folk wanting to explore that more maybe I shouldn't say more genuinely, with a greater focus towards retaining culture. Yes. Oh, there were two other points. Well, a little separately, I sent you a song that you should listen to. Same thing about hailing Orisha, hailing the email there in the midst of the music. I sent you a song to listen to about. As well as I also bigging you up for your recommendation of Yoruba lessons with Adironke. On your recommendation, I went and listened to a lot of her videos, specifically explaining grammar and etymology and that sort of stuff. And I took it to Ade Sugar, just at first without telling him who Adironke was or where I got this stuff was, just asking him about the etymology and asking him to see if my understanding of these words was correct.
Right.
But word for word, he corroborated everything that she has said. So I want to also I want to confirm for the audience who may also have heard you recommend Adironke, that we also have indigenous native speakers confirming that yes, indeed, this is exactly what these things mean. This is how they are formed. He also corroborated something that she had said, that the language that a lot of these I'll say narratives in English, I can't remember what the Orisha word for it is. A lot of these narratives, patakis, they say in Santeria, I think. The language that is used is not the same Yoruba that is spoken today. There is a word he uses for the language, for the language of the spirit, the language of the tradition, which contains many words which don't exist today. So things, a tradition, well, maybe it's not too traditional, but a typical greeting among devotees in Trinbago, they will say Alafia. And it seems to me that every time he hears it, he kind of gets a little ticked off about that, because that's some.
Alafia is not an indigenous Yoruba word. It's a borrowing from Arabic.
It's an importation. You know. That to say, the information is what they say now. The kids will be all right. I think that as well as that's the two things I wanted to say. You inspired me to go explore why there is this blossoming, let's say, of Orisha / spiritual Baptist expression in the in the music that is coming up now. That's one. And two, I have been or rather I shouldn't say I have been. I had been, when I was more involved in these communities in Trinbago, noticing a lot of these spiritual Baptist and Shango Baptist communities, or members of those communities, the younger members, actively turning and focusing more toward Isheshe and toward Ifa, right? And not necessarily abandoning the Christianity part of their faith, but explicitly researching and going toward the traditional faith. So it may be also that this is the fruit of the investment that they put down, let's say about 10 years ago.
Absolutely. And it's something that that I'm hoping begins to flower across the region. You're right. I see it more in like in Grenada, in terms of how people are reconsidering jab at the moment as well, not just as mass in terms of revelry, but as culture, mass in terms of culture and its origin and what it represents, that people are trying to preserve, because jab is becoming very commercialized. And so the balance, the counterbalance to that is that people are trying to preserve it as a definitive cultural expression, and there's work being done on that, you know what I'm saying? So that there are things happening all over the place in that regard. So yeah, Imhotep, I'm gonna start wrapping up the show, yeah. But give thanks for coming through, man. Appreciate the what you brought and where we got to take it based upon that. I'm just seeing, oh yeah, I'm seeing the Adi Sugar thing. I've subscribed to his YouTube as well, so yeah, give thanks for that thing, you know.
Peace to the film, peace to the film. Yes, I.
Yes, sir. Blessed. All right, family. You know what I'm saying? Long time I'm not hear from Imhotep, you know, so it's good to interact with the bridge. I'm gonna do some of these comments. And even if just to shout out a few people. Big up Dr. Dennis Assar. Yeah, in over there in Baltimore in the USA. Big up yourself, King. Much appreciation for tuning in. Melanated goddess, you know. When I see I hear from the eye, I'm gonna assume this is, if I know this is her been up about me talking about underneath girl. You know what I mean? But it's true, that's what most of the songs are about. I don't, there's only one song in that rhythm. And no, to be fair, there's another song by a sister from the UK, you know, I'm forget, like she's Jamaican, but from the, like living in the UK. She did a Nancy song. What's her name again? I'm forgetting it, you know. But it was a relationship song, but it was like, no, I love Nancy for trick you. So Nancy's a man where, you know, in one trick man. I like that, yeah. You know, she brought the culture in a different and unique way. But like them thing there. You know what I'm saying? We must have something more for talk about. Pan the hill and go the rhythm. Yeah, than Oman Crutches Miggle. Like, you know what I'm saying? It like, you know, and that's not to downplay the significance and the importance of Oman Crutches. Like, you know what I'm saying? The whole that we come from there. And when we want to pick, we have to go back there and all them thing there. Right? We love that. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You know, we don't play them thing there at all. Yeah, all praises be to underneath Oman. But we must have something more to talk about, you know, this time. You know what I mean? Most of the critics don't really care about the culture. It's just their classism surfacing because they're not listening to the Kumila version either. I would agree. I'm not going to deny that fact. I think I'd agree. I would agree. Yeah. I think when the elder came out and said what she said, I think that factored into, and I remember Sister Kabu Ma'at Keru on IRI FM one morning, making that exact point in relation to the situation. Yeah. And I can't remember what her statement was, but it was a powerful statement in the sense of the fact that what do we expect the youth them to talk about when we have limited everything with them see and can hear about and experience so much. Yeah. You know, what do we expect, like, out of what we've produced, the environment that we've produced for them? Yeah. And the extent to which a lot of the reason is generated by uptown people looking down on downtown people, quote unquote, so to speak. That's a reality. Yeah, that's a reality. So there's a conversation to be had there. I'm speaking more from the perspective of culture, and when you look at our folk songs like Hill and Gully and all them thing there, and where they come from and the thing and what they're referring to and the context for them and the different stories that are being told in, you know what I'm saying? I just feel like it's something to be said that we have to do more with our culture than that. You know what I mean? There's a point I'm trying to make, but I agree. Plenty of classism about, yeah, the conversation. Okay. So yep, the anti-African lobby is here. But so this is an example of what I spoke about earlier. About the anti-African self-hating lobby creating false premises to argue from. Jamaicans aren't African in nationality. We're Jamaican nationality and black in race. Yeah. Nationality is a legal designation that has very little often to do with identity. For example, technically my nationality is British because I was born in the UK, the United Kingdom of Great Britain. So my passport says British. Yes. So if I go anywhere in the world, I'll be recognized as a Britain and referred to as British by nationality. My identity is not British. Yes. Imhotep already dealt with this nonsense about black in race. That doesn't even to try and differentiate black in race from African is elite gymnastics, backflipping from denying African heritage and identity. So no, in this particular dispensation of time, African is not a nationality, i.e., there is no passport that you're going to get that says African on it. There may be in the future. That doesn't exist right here now. So nobody has argued ever that we have an African nationality. We have an African identity, and we have African nationhood and African cultural retention, manifestation, heritage, history. And I think we have to, and this is where I'll read a couple more comments and then I'll close out. They got the Trillies in the building. Yeah, Trillies there. You know what I mean? Jamaican culture comes from 500 years of blood, sweat, and tears. Jamaica and reggae didn't come from Africa. That's a ridiculous statement. So 500 years of what? What is included in the 500 years? If not the trafficking of Africans from the continent of Africa? Is that a part of the 500 years? And then when the Africans were trafficked from Africa, did they leave all of their language, music, spirituality, worldview, political institutions, how to organize socially? Was all of that left on the shores of the west coast of Africa? Or was that at all, any of it at all, carried with us to Jamaica? These ridiculous. And you know the funny thing is that when you check the pioneers of reggae, you will know that these things explicitly come from our African cultural retention in Jamaica. There is no reggae music without Ento and Komina. There is no dancehall without Ento and Komina. Another day we'll go into that. So yeah, we're not going to spend too much time on these ridiculous statements. Right. Let me see now. Okay, brothers and sisters, our ability to properly negotiate and problem solve in today's world as African people is entirely reliant upon our capacity and our ability and our willingness to fully embrace the reality of being African. Lord, I'm about to close out and Hulu just have to jump back on the panel. All right, because he jumped on before and I didn't ask you, I'm gonna take it. All right, so Hood, I'm bringing you through now. Greetings, Hoodoo.
Peace, brother. Thanks for having me up, and I apologize for catching you when you was about to close down.
No problem, bro. You're speaking to me from. Are you actually in New Orleans?
Well, I'm in Puerto Rico right now, for sure.
Okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
No worries. But yeah, feel free to bring the Louisiana voodoo energy. You know what I mean? We appreciate that.
For sure. And I have to ask you before I, state my opinion, but right now, would you say the state of affairs between Caribbeans and Africans in the UK is tumultuous to a degree?
No. I would say for the most part, not. There are small minorities among each of us who try to fester beef at different elements, and when that happens, things do flare up. I think it was much more of a thing in the 90s and the 80s, but even the extent of that, I think, is somewhat overblown. And the point of what I was saying today is that to a degree, it's overblown, partly because there are elements of the story that are often not told. So there are any number of examples of Africans from the continent and the Caribbean being in synchrony and harmony with each other that are not often a part of the discourse. So sometimes the perception makes it look more tumultuous than it actually is. So there are elements of that, but I wouldn't say it's that, generally speaking.
Exactly. And I would say the same thing about our relationship in the US between African Americans, Afro Caribbeans, and continental Africans. And I'll say this in closing, really, because I appreciate you having me up. I think collectively as Afro diasporans, we must advocate seriously. We must seriously advocate for these African nations to create citizenship by descent programs specifically for descendants of transatlantic chattel slavery. Now, I know that Benin and Sierra Leone both have citizenship by descent programs, but Ghana, as far as I know, they have a right to abode, but they don't have a citizenship by descent program. And as far as the rest of the nations that most of us descend from, they don't have citizenship by descent programs. So, to address the elephant in the room, which is our lack of unity, if these African nations that we descend from create citizenship by descent programs specifically for Afro diasporans, this will create unity naturally amongst us. But literally, I don't have much more to say. If you want to respond to what I just said, and then I'll drop down.
Yeah,
I appreciate you
I
having
think.
me up.
No, thank you, my brother. I appreciate you coming through. And shout to all our people in Puerto Rico. Melanated, I'm gonna come to you. It's good to see you, sis. What's it called? What am I saying now? Right. So no, there's no disagreement with the principle of what you said. Yeah, I think we have to understand the context in which we live, and that is the context of neocolonialism. Most, if not all, governments on the African continent have been neocolonial for the better part of 60 years. Yes. And so in the context of a neocolonial government that is not even serving the interests of the masses of its people, we will not expect that those governments to serve the interests of the African diaspora. And so the extent to which we don't have what you have suggested that we should have, which is birth and lineage based citizenship, is the extent of the fact to which the fact that our governments, not just on the continent, but also in the Caribbean, are neo-colonial governments that are not about the empowerment of African people. And so the only context in which those are going to come about is through the advocacy and the pressure and the organization of those of us who think in such a way to make those things happen. We should not go to Africa expecting neo-colonial governments to give us revolutionary policies, right? That's not going to happen unless we are able to put pressure on those governments, or more importantly, are able to change the nature of those governments to more revolutionary purposes. And I think that those things would have been a natural development if people like Patrice Lumumba and Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah and Thomas Sankara. One of the things that I forgot to mention earlier when I was responding to that one of the comments that was left under the video is that when Thomas Sankara traveled to the USA, he was in New York. I believe he was in Harlem, and he was there on as the head of state of Burkina Faso, to meet with the government in America. But he made a point, and he was not the only one to do this, of having a meeting with the African community in Harlem, and he spoke about the relationship between Africans in Burkina Faso and Africans in the United States of America, and also spoke about his reaching out to Maurice Bishop of Grenada, and trying to form a link and a tie with Maurice Bishop of Grenada. Samora Machel, in sometime between 1979 and 1983, observed African Liberation Day in Grenada with Maurice Bishop and the revolutionary government in Grenada. So those connections were being made by those activists who were forming those relationships during that time. It just so happened that Sankara was killed, Maurice Bishop was killed. Yeah, right. Maurice Bishop was killed just before Sankara comes out of prison, yeah, to assume the presidency, right? And so I'm saying, what the point I'm making is that these are things that would have been on the table and were on the table during these more revolutionary aspects of our history. And it just so happens that because a lot of those revolutionaries were taken out and their movements were destroyed, we don't have those things today. And so the unity, the only disagreement that I have is that the installation of, and by the way, that should be reciprocal in terms of our brothers and sisters from the continent being able to get similar kind of citizenship in majority Black nations in the Caribbean. And we should also make allowances in the Caribbean for our brothers and sisters in the United States to get citizenship on the African continent through their relationship with us, right? You know what I'm saying, right? So there's all kinds of things that need to be done. The only disagreement I have with what you said is that it won't be the attainment of the citizenship that will create unity. It will be through our unity that we will be able to pressure those governments to either change or institute those policies.
No, I definitely hear you. No, I definitely hear you. But when I said it will create unity, right now, you know, for the most part, with the African Americans, that is the common argument I hear. That, you know, if we go to Africa, they are not automatically granting us citizenship by descent. So, you know, that
my brother, there's
does.
no way. I'm familiar with the argument, yeah. And I'm not. when I say what I'm saying, I'm not putting it on you. I'm just responding to the argument. There is no, and because I hear this as well from Africans from the Caribbean. I'm an African from Jamaica, yes, and Antigua. I cannot walk into Jamaica or Antigua right now and just automatically get citizenship.
And that's a problem.
That is a problem. I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm just saying, us from the Caribbean who are talking about going to Africa and getting citizenship, and if they don't give us citizenship, then we're not going to unify, and or we are not African. Because that's the argument that I'm hearing, right? Makes no sense, because we don't say the same thing when we go back home and we can't get citizenship and passport, right?
You said you gotta apply for it.
But you notice I never. But you notice I never said that. What I'm saying is respectfully. Go ahead.
No. That's why I said I'm not responding to you specifically when I say this. I'm saying that this is a part of the argument that I'm hearing. So I'm more responding to the
individuals who make a similar argument. That's what he's saying, Mulatto. Like people.
No,
people
I am, but I just don't want to have ADHD. What I'm saying is, in real life, tangibly, these African nations, especially Africans that come to the U.S., they criticize many African Americans for not unifying with them. But if we look tangibly at what African Americans have done for continental Africans, as far as, you know, literally fighting for Africans and Caribbeans to have citizenship in the United States, fighting for Africans and Caribbeans to be able to immigrate in mass numbers to the United States. We don't see African nations or Caribbean nations reciprocating any of these citizenship pathways to African Americans in their countries of origin. So that's why I brought up, you know, I agree actually. It will take Africans and African Americans to unify, to create these citizenship by descent programs throughout these African nations. I will never deny that. But there are particular African nations that already have citizenship by descent programs, such as Benin and Sierra Leone, and we're still not seeing the masses of African Americans unifying with Africans. So, in closing, yes, I meant what I said, and I'm standing on what I said. If these African nations are serious about wanting, particularly African Americans, to unify with Africa, they have to create incentives such as citizenship by descent programs. Really.
Can
I've
I
heard.
just chime in?
Yeah, I'm gonna come to you right now, Melanie. Yeah, I was gonna say
Sure.
this. It's a debate that we can have. I'm not sure the extent to which, like, for example, most African governments are trying to unite with the African diaspora, for example. But your
I
point is
agree.
well received. Yeah. So, I'm just simply saying that the reason why that's not happening is because the American government, the French government, the British government literally went and assassinated leaders of movements who would have done just that. Yeah. So we have to put it into the context of the history and understand what is taking place there. But let me get melanated in so I can go on and wrap up the show. Go ahead, melanated. Good to hear your voice, sister. Like, long time with all these
Good
things.
to hear. I know, Shaka. Like, where you been? You know what I'm saying? You leaving us to the smut of YouTube. Shaka leaving us to the low vibrations, and he just over there just chilling with to the African drums of the high vibrations, all to himself. Don't be like that, brother. Don't be like that. No, but seriously,
No, man. Go ahead. Go ahead.
as a person whose parents, who went through the process of getting
Yes.
citizenship in the country, not by descent or down the generations. My mother and father
Yes.
just trying to get my citizenship in the country that my mother and father. You think I could have just said, "Here's her birth certificate, here's mine,
Right.
boom, let me get it. I deserve it. I'm her child. I'm his child." Yeah, no, no,
No.
no. It was a 2 year process. It was a
Right.
2 year process, and my parents
The funny
were
thing is,
born there.
I was gonna say,
So,
I know people that has taken them years to get a Jamaican passport.
so
Yeah,
when
years.
when you say my uh Ghanaian great great grandparent who had a baby with my Cameroonian great 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 grandparent who had a
Right.
baby with my Yoruba great great grandparent, like,
Right.
with they like, okay, you're not just about to get your citizenship like that, boo boo. Like, we don't even know, you know what I'm saying? You can't just do it.
Right.
So I don't really think that's a great argument.
Well, let me respond. It'll
I
be
hear
brief.
it, but I don't.
No, well, this is my brief response. If Africa and the Caribbean don't create citizenship by descent programs to attract the masses of the diaspora back to their countries to protect their borders, how will they stop neo-colonization? How will they stop the Chinese from encroaching and the Russians from encroaching and the US from encroaching? Really,
No,
y'all let me
you're
know.
right. Yeah, no, but it's not that you're wrong. What I am saying is that we're dealing with a situation of neocolonialism. So most of our governments, unfortunately, are not trying to stop the Europeans from
No, but
encroaching.
brother, I understand that part. I'm saying
And
we have to solve the problem. We can acknowledge the
yes,
problem, but we have to solve it. So back to the question that I asked. If these African nations and these Caribbean nations don't create citizenship by descent programs to attract that diaspora back to their country to defend their borders, how would they ever stop neo-colonization?
my brother, that is a part of the process. What I am saying is that it's not even me who agree in principle, it is not the primary policy that's going to stop neocolonialism. Yeah,
Right.
it's a good
Well,
That's
what
like
would it
saying
be?
I got to give you the
right.
keys to my house in order for you to help me with something. I got to
But
give
it's
you the
your house
keys. You
too,
can't
though.
just come on in.
Hold
You
on, but
can't just
sis,
come on in. Hold on, let me finish.
Right.
You can respond, but let me just get it out. You're
yes.
saying unless I put your name on the deed in my house, you can't live in my house. You see what
Now,
I'm
is it
saying?
also
Because
not your
I,
house?
I, I can't, my house far removed. It's been so far removed
Yes, but
that
it's
I'm
also your
over here.
house.
Listen, let me finish, brother. It's so far removed that I'm over here espousing on the WW World Wide Web that I don't speak African, I don't eat African, I'm not African. So let's not pretend, right? It is far removed. So the same way we trying to get to know each other, right? We talking 400, 300, 200 years ago, right? Let's slowly do this. What's the offense in that? I wouldn't be offended if somebody telling me, "Hey, you are." I have a distant cousin. That don't mean they get the key to my house. They still got to. We still related, but they don't
But
have the key
sis,
to my house.
but they giving the
That's the
Chinese
difference.
the key to they giving the Chinese the keys to their house.
There you
Again,
go.
That's
You thought the
facts.
white man got the key to your house too? Then I mean, where do you go
Hold
with
on, but
that?
don't get triggered though. Don't get triggered. The
When you talking
Chinese
about
got
the
the keys
Chinese,
to
we
their
talking
house.
about you talking about Black African people. But stay
Exactly.
and
focused there. Keep the
sorry, my brother.
conversation there.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying in Africa,
Why
sis, I'm
do
not
the
arguing with you.
Chinese? Why do the Chinese have the key to the house, bro?
Because the Africans and the Caribbeans open the door for them to have the key.
That's not the reason why
Why?
the Chinese have
That's not
the house.
answering this question.
Well, help
Yeah,
me understand this.
the reason the Chinese
There
have the
you
key
go.
to the house is because China is an economic power and prospected to be the next economic superpower in the world. And so, when you're dealing with situations of neo-colonized governments, they make neo-colonial deals, right? That's just what happens. And I'm saying to you that the 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 result that you're looking for, we cannot put the cart before the horse. When I'm not, for me
Mm-hmm.
personally, it is not my argument that to challenge the neo-colonial order, African neo-colonial governments must give me citizenship, and or my governments in the Caribbean must grant me citizenship. My aim is to challenge the neo-colonial order. So I organize with other people on whatever level to challenge that order and bring about the policies that I want. Yes, the the um the policies again that you're advocating for will only happen when organized groups of African people advocate for those policies and install
Mm-hmm.
governments that are amenable to those policies. But let us bear in mind, my brother, that we are talking about governments that are not even serving the masses of the people in those nations. Yes,
I
that
agree.
our
I
nations
agree.
are sold out to America and to France
And to
and other
China.
Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, China is a slightly different argument, and they're new on the block. For the last 60 odd years, we've been talking about the West, yes, and the extent to which our governments have been literally installed in many instances by these people to do their bidding.
But
We cannot
Shakara, let's go.
expect.
Could we go one step at a time, brother? I'm trying to respond to some of what you're saying. You said that Africa and the Caribbean gave China the keys to their house because China is an economic force. My question is the Afro diaspora now also an economic force? Yes or no?
No,
No,
not
not a
in the same
united
way.
one.
No.
Not,
No,
not
But
in the
that's your
same
it's
way.
that's
not.
your low self-esteem speaking
No, it's
Not
respectfully.
in
not.
a united way. Show the
Right,
united
right.
diaspora and
We the
economic
African
force. What is
diaspora.
the united?
Sorry,
I was just saying,
go on, Medai.
where is the united African diaspora and force? Can you please tell us what
Yes,
that
let
is?
me respond to that. Let me respond to that. African Americans alone, and I'm not even speaking about Black Brits. I'm not even speaking about the Caribbean, Black Brazilians. African Americans alone are worth, I think, $2 trillion. That's not even
That,
counting
If
that's
the
you
rest of
understand the
the.
word united, united,
That's
united,
yeah. Did you hear my
united.
response? Did you hear my
yeah,
response?
my
No,
brother,
they're not united.
I
No,
did,
I'm just
but
talking about African Americans, and
I
I know
know,
this. I say three
my
words and I
brother.
get cut off, but the point is, if Africa can invite the Chinese into their house, yes, they can create incentives to invite Afro diasporans back into their house, or the Chinese will just take over their house. Really,
my brother, and you seem to be you seem to be focusing on the Chinese and not the American government.
it's also the U.S.,
Which is
also the Russians. It's
right,
multiple
right.
different nations that got their hand in
I
Africa right now.
I know. No, what I'm saying, I'm
France,
identifying that because it's interesting that
uh-huh,
you're a brother from the States, and I'm saying that the
exactly.
United States of America has the government of the United States of America has a significant neocolonial imprint
I
on
agree.
the African.
I
Right?
agree. Now, how do we stop it though?
That has been longer and far outweighs the Chinese at this point.
I agree
The
with you.
problem,
I'm saying, how do we stop it?
hold on. The problem with China is that they're beginning to challenge American hegemony, and America doesn't like it at this moment.
I agree. It's
right?
multiple colonists. I agree.
Right.
In
hold
Africa.
on. So let me allow me to finish now. The trillion, having a trillion, and I would actually challenge the idea that Black America has that trillion. So what figure that you talked about, right? That's another subject for another time. But I will encourage you to look at people like Amos Wilson in terms of the difference between having money and having an economic system, and also to research the work of a brother by the name of Jared Ball in terms of the myth and propaganda of Black buying power. Very important that we look at that work. Yeah. If the trillions, though, if we take the trillion figure for granted for a second, having a trillion does not represent an organized economic system of production in the way that China operates as a nation. Yes. When we talk about China, we are not just talking about having the equivalent of the Chinese GDP, yeah, the gross domestic product. We're talking about a productive system. We're talking about economic interests that are collectively represented by the government of China in concert with the people of China. There is no equivalent government or system else anywhere in the world, including in Black America, that has the wherewithal to offer anything close and demand and make demands of anything close to what China is doing at the moment in reality. Yes, so we have to recognize that, and in order to get that, it takes a certain level of organization, and that's kind of the point I made initially. That the policy that we're all agreeing on in terms of citizenship and so on, and certain levels of rights, and we all agree on those policies. But I'm saying they're only going to come when we decide to organize and demand it of our governments, or take them out of power if they refuse to accede to those demands. That's the only way it's going to happen. It's not going to.
Well, brother, respectfully, let me give you an example where they didn't have to be taken out of power to create citizenship by descent programs. In Sierra Leone, they didn't have to overthrow the government to create citizenship by descent programs. In Benin, they didn't have to do that either. So back to what you said about China, correct me if I'm wrong. If I misinterpret what you said, my question is, brother, please let me say one sentence. Let me say one sentence, please. So essentially, what you're saying is Africa will not invite their diaspora home. They will not create citizenship by descent programs for their diaspora if there's no economic incentive like the one China provides.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, so help me understand, brother.
I was using the example
No.
of China. In
But
terms
that's
of
not
just
how.
economic.
Shakawa, can I tell you? Shakawa, can I repeat what you
Yeah,
said,
go ahead,
brother?
sis. Go ahead, sis.
Oh, I don't know. I'm breaking up. Am I breaking up?
You
Okay,
clear
so
now.
Shakawa, this is what Shakawa said. The current political figures in place now need to be taken out. That requires a level of unity. That's what Shakawa is saying. He is not saying, "Oh, are you listening?"
No, I heard you. I asked, did you hear
Or is
my
it?
response? Because I responded
Yes,
to what he
you're
said
basically
verbatim.
you.
My response
No,
was,
but you
let
didn't respond to what he said, because he talked
what,
about the
let me,
political.
let me repeat what I said, because I think you didn't hear me. What I said was, look at Benin and Sierra Leone. They didn't have to overthrow their governments to create citizenship by descent programs. for
my
the
brother,
Afro diaspora.
but you missed the first part of what I said though. I said
What
they
part?
have to be organized to make those demands, and if they refuse to accede to those demands, to overthrow the governments and get them out of power.
But that's
what I
easier
said.
to say from the UK, brother. That's
No,
easier
yeah,
to say.
but my brother, of course, it's easier said than done. It doesn't make it any less true. What I know people in Sierra Leone, for example. I know less about the Benin people, but I know people in Sierra Leone who actively organized to get that policy in Sierra Leone.
That's the first thing I said, brother. That was my initial point when I came up. I said organize and advocate. If you rewind the tape, you'll see I already said that, brother.
Yeah.
I didn't, but you agree that governments didn't have to get overthrown, right?
No, but I never said they had to get overthrown.
Okay, then, brother.
Hold on. What I said was, wherever it's going to happen, we cannot expect neocolonial governments to install policies such as those without a certain amount of pressure. And that pressure is going to come from organized.
Well, that's why I said advocate, brother. That's why I said advocate, brother.
Yes, but I'm so
because you can agree, Benin and Sierra Leone, those are neocolonial governments.
Stop cutting him, mulatto. Yes. He's talking.
Yeah.
But you can agree those are neocolonial governments, right? In Benin and Sierra Leone.
Yes, and in the instance, of I can speak to Sierra Leone. Demands were made. Yes,
exactly.
And for whatever reason in that, but I'm saying again, it is going to require certain levels of organization among African people.
Yeah, that was my initial point. That was my initial point.
So then we agree then, all right? So we cannot just expect it to happen. We're gonna have to organize and develop some.
No, I expect us to advocate. Well,
then let's do that, my brother.
Us, yes. I'm glad you put an us on it. Yes, that's the unity part.
We agree on that. Right, family.
Well, that was the first thing I said. Literally, the first sentence.
No, you didn't say us. You didn't say us.
Family, I was gonna close the show about an hour ago, so I'm gonna do that now. Yeah.
Okay.
But thank you for coming through. We appreciate you. I'm gonna try and go more live more often for the rest of the year as well. So I won't leave Melanie hanging.
I'm gonna hold you to that, Shakara. I ain't lying to. I'm gonna hold you to that. I'm gonna hit you up on WhatsApp like, where you at? Where you at?
100%. Maybe we should have a conversation about trying to get citizenship in the Caribbean from our descended from our nations in the Caribbean. You know what I mean?
Listen, for real, because somebody need to holler at Barbados. Because I ain't lying. I think I want some bad John. I think I can do the accent. I think I can do it.
Yo. All right, big up yourself. Yeah, big up yourself.
Yeah, big up. Peace, mulatto.
Peace.
All right, family. So we give thanks for that. Took the conversation somewhere else, but we give thanks. It's all part of the thing. I've been doing a series, and this is not reflected on our brother that was just on the panel. But this is prior to this conversation here. I've been doing a series on my Insta entitled "Things That Self-Hating Negroes Say to Justify Their Anti-Africanness or to Deny Their Africanness." Things that self-hating Negroes say to deny their Africanness. I think I'm on the third, and this is literally just detailing things that people say to me in denial of their Africanness. One of them is about not getting citizenship, and so the idea is that we're not, because you can't go to Africa. This is more speaking from the perspective of Africans from the Caribbean now, and get citizenship in any country of your choosing, just like that. Therefore, we are not African. The other argument is because I can't go and get land. Yeah, can't just walk into any African country and get land. Therefore, I'm not an African. And these arguments are not particularly intelligent, like especially from Africans from the Caribbean, because I can't just walk as an African from Jamaica and Antigua. Me can't just walk in Jamaica and Antigua and get citizenship and land just so. Yes, And there are instances of where even people from said islands have land like through family, and they have to actually advocate and sometimes go through legal processes to prove that the land is inherently theirs. Yeah, and we go through those processes. We're no less Jamaican, we're no less Antiguan, we're no less Grenadian, we're no less Trini, because we have to go and sign a form and pay for it. Yeah, to secure our passport in these places. Yes, we are no less, because we have to pay for our passport and pay for land. So it's silly for us to expect to go to the African continent in the current context and just get all of these things, especially in the context whereby the majority of the people them living in the nation don't have these things. Yeah, we speak like we don't know the levels of disenfranchisement and poverty that exist back home in Africa and the Caribbean. We speak like we don't know where we are talking about. So now we want to go into our back home nations and be granted what our people on the ground are still fighting to get. And what we tend to do is focus on the neo-colonial government and not the masses of our people on the ground. Yeah? So for me personally, before I seek to advocate to the government of Ghana or Congo, I'm seeking to form relationship with the people of Ghana and Congo and find the Pan-Africanists, the revolutionaries, the African-centered folk among the masses of the people and form meaningful connections with them on the ground. And through our meaningful connections, on the ground, we were able to form the kind of social power pressure organization that can advocate for the things that we say we want and create the institutions to put in place what we say we want. The best of our movements have developed things like free clinics in underdeveloped nations, whereby the medical system is failing the people to address at least some of the immediate medical needs of our people. We're not waiting for the neo-colonial government to solve those problems. We're organizing among ourselves and then putting pressure on the neo-colonial government from that perspective. Food programs, education programs, etc., etc., etc. Yeah? And there's all the thing there. And sometimes it's as though we're actually afraid to deal with those issues. And so we create reasonings and lines of argument that allow us not to do so. And the Africans versus Caribbeans thing is one of those realities. It is a sign of mental ill health, as far as I'm concerned, for Africans anywhere in the world to deny their Africanness. You cannot be in your right mind. I think Omwale Malcolm X said this. You cannot be in your right mind and be in denial about your Africanness. You cannot hate Africa and not end up hating yourself. Yeah, and so we have a lot of self-hating Negroism about the place. And the self-hating Negroes love moments like these where Gina Yeshere goes on a podcast and says something controversial so we can focus on that and blow it up. But as I said at the beginning of this conversation, Gina Yeshere also said that Britain are the supreme architects of colonialism and white supremacy. She said that on the same podcast. That clip didn't go viral. And there's a reason why that clip didn't go viral. Because so much of social media, black social media in particular, is sensitized towards perpetuating certain levels of division. If it's not diaspora wars, it's gender wars. Yeah. So we are an African people. And our Africanness has many beautiful manifestations. And some of those manifestations are in the Caribbean. And to affirm our Africanness within the context of our people from the Caribbean is an act of divine therapy. That when we can look at ourselves and see the continuity of our people who were trafficked across the ocean, how we preserved ourselves and kept ourselves and maintained ourselves as ourselves, we have something to build on. And we are also in acceptance and embrace of our reality. For example, this comment that I read earlier, reggae music has no connection to Africa. That is a stupid statement. Yeah? Like, it's stupid. Anything about African retention, even the patois where we speak, even the patois where we speak doesn't exist without African languages that we brought from the continent of Africa. So it's ridiculous. It's stupid. Why I say it's mental ill health, because of the extent to which it requires you to deny reality. And another day we'll go into this, you know. And I'll quote directly from Lee Scratch Perry, one of the pioneers of reggae music, and where to demonstrate the lineage of where reggae music comes from as a creation of Africans in the Caribbean. And to say Africans is not to say anything other than the people of the island of Jamaica who were trafficked from the African continent and retained and preserved and evolved and created from our culture. That we as Africans in Jamaica are so creative that we preserved and evolved our African culture and developed this unique expression that was born on the island of Jamaica. So self-hating Negroes are all about, and you will tend to find with self-hating Negroes that they're generally speaking allegiant to Western nations. Like I meet a lot of these self-hating Negroes in the UK at the moment, and simultaneously anti-African, they are also entirely allegiant to the United Kingdom of Great Britain, flying the Union Jack and supporting England in the World Cup and all them things there. Same everywhere on the planet. You meet self-hating Negroes from the African continent, yeah, could be entirely rejecting and demonizing of Africans from the Caribbean, entirely subservient when it comes to the United Kingdom of Great Britain, waving the Union Jack and supporting England in the World Cup. Same with brothers and sisters from the United States of America, but be entirely disparaging of Africans from elsewhere, but entirely subservient when it comes to the United States of America, waving the Union Jack, and etc., etc., etc. It's a reality. We see it all about. And so what we have to realize is that no group of Africans can claim a superiority complex on consciousness. Not an Agossa. Yeah? We all have among us self-hating Negroes. And so our challenge is to form some kind of social bond among Africans who recognize themselves beyond self-hating Negro narratives and neutralize the impact of the self-hating Negro among us. That is the only way we can solve a problem such as this. And with that, brothers and sisters, I am actually going to end as my brother Sir Imhotep asked me to, and drop some science from our Isheshe, our Arusha community over there in Trinidad. You know what I mean? Come, I love them, and I love the vibrations where I come from, Trinidad, as far as Isheshe is concerned. And if you know me, you know that I've been connected with that from a very, very long time, from when I was a pitney and was first introduced to Mama Ella Andel. And so I'm kind of partial to, you know, the Orisha vibrations coming out of Trinidad. So we're going to end in another way there. And yeah, make we end in this way. With that, brothers and sisters, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Give thanks to all those who commented. Give thanks to all those who came through on the panel. This has been Kimbunga Media Live, and we look forward to seeing Medai. Be thankful unto the Mother, Father, creative life force of the universe. We give praises unto our great ancestors, Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodi, African power and African liberation for all African people. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
Today, we shall devote all our chants to paying homage. I pay homage to Ogun, a divinity worthy of worship. Ogun, who had two very sharp cutlasses, sharp as fire, one for work and one for war. He used one for clearing an area for making a farm in the forest. The other he used for cutting a path into the forest from one place to the other. The type of clothing that Ogun wore on the day he made his descent from Orioke, the day he made his descent from the hill to the plain, I know very well. He wore a flame-red coverlet over a blood-red tunic. Ogun tied a wrapper that was soaked in blood. Fresh palm fronds were also part of Ogun's clothing. His eyeballs were red and flaming, a rare type. Ogun acquired plenty of wealth on the road and has plenty of money in his house. It was Ogun who cut on the left, and the left was totally destroyed. It was Ogun who cut on the right, and the right was totally destroyed. It was Ogun, after storing water in abundance in his house, he proceeded to bathe in blood. He is the supporter and provider for any orphan. The Ogun that I know are 7 in number. Ogun Onire, who is given a huge ram. Ogun Alara, who is given a big dog. Ogun Ikole is appeased with snails. Ogun Elemona is given roasted yam. Ogun Akirum is given the horns of rams. Ogun Umbenabena, Ogun of the wood carvers, who feast on the vital juice from trees. Ogun Olo Ola, Ogun of the circumcisers, who feeds on blood. Whoever knows Ogun should not mock Ogun. Aṣọ ẹ̀jẹ̀ Ogun ro ṣókó balẹ̀. Aṣọ ẹ̀jẹ̀ Ogun ro ṣókó. Aṣọ ẹ̀jẹ̀ Ogun ro ṣókó balẹ̀. Aṣọ ẹ̀jẹ̀ Ogun ro. Aṣọ ẹ̀jẹ̀ Ogun ro bàbá. Aṣọ ẹ̀jẹ̀ Ogun ro. Ogun ro ṣó. Aṣọ ẹ̀jẹ̀ Ogun ro. Ogun ro. Aṣọ ẹ̀jẹ̀ Ogun ro. Ogun ro ṣókó balẹ̀. Aṣọ ẹ̀jẹ̀ Ogun ro. Ogun ro ṣókó balẹ̀. Aṣọ ẹ̀jẹ̀ Ogun ro. Ẹ̀rù Ogun máa bá mi Ogun o. Ẹ̀rù Ogun máa bá mi. Mi Ogun. Ẹ̀rù Ogun máa bá mi. Ogun Onire. Ẹ̀rù Ogun máa bá mi. Ogun Alára. Ẹ̀rù Ogun máa bá mi. Ogun Akiru. Ẹ̀rù Ogun máa bá mi. Bẹ́nàbẹ́nà. Ẹ̀rù Ogun máa bá mi. Mi Ogun. Ẹ̀rù Ogun máa bá mi. Ẹlẹ́mọ̀nà. Ẹ̀rù Ogun máa bá mi. Mi Ogun. onire kí ló jẹ kí ló mu. Ògún onire kí ló jẹ bàmí ògún o.
Yàwá ògún onire kí ló jẹ kí ló mu. Ògún onire kí ló jẹ bàmí ògún o.
Yàwá ògún onire kí ló jẹ kí ló mu. Ògún onire kí ló jẹ bàmí ògún o.
Yàwá ògún onire kí ló jẹ kí ló mu. Ògún onire kí ló jẹ bàmí ògún o.
Yàwá ògún onire kí ló jẹ kí ló mu. Ògún onire kí ló jẹ bàmí ògún o.
Yàwá ògún onire kí ló jẹ kí ló mu. Ògún onire kí ló jẹ bàmí ògún o.
Yé ariwo ògún yé.
Ariwo ògún yé.
Ariwo ògún yé. Ariwo ògún yé. Ariwo káwò kárẹlẹ. Ariwo ògún yé. Ariwo ògún dé. Ariwo ògún dé. Jọyé ògún jọyé. Jọyé ògún jọyé. Jọyé ògún jọyé. Yé jọyé ògún jọyé. Yé jọyé ògún jọyé. Ògún lálàlà múrelé ògún lálà mọ̀dé bàbá. Ògún lálà mọ̀dé. Ògún lálà mọ̀dé bàbá. Ògún lálà mọ̀dé. Ògún lálà mọ̀dé. Karagade, Ògún Karagade. Yé olómi Ògún Karagade bàbá. Yé Karagade, Ògún Karagade bàbá. Yé olómi Ògún Karagade. Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀ àmì o, Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀. Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀ àmì o, Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀. Àwa ọmọdé ọmọ Bàngélé, Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀ àmì o.
Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀ àmì o, Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀. Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀ àmì o, Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀. Àwa ọmọdé ọmọ Bàngélé, Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀ àmì o.
Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀ àmì o, Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀ bàbá. Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀ àmì o, Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀. Àwa ọmọdé ọmọ Bàngélé, Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀ àmì o.
Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀ àmì o, Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀. Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀ àmì o, Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀. Àwa ọmọdé ọmọ Bàngélé, Ògún bẹ̀rẹ̀.
Yé àwa ọmọdé. Yé àwa ọmọdé. 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 Ògún máa ṣàdáyé. Ògún máa ṣàdáyé o. Ògún máa ṣàdáyé. Ọba Ádámà ṣàdá o.
Ògún máa ṣàdáyé. Ògún máa ṣàdáyé o. Ògún máa ṣàdáyé. Ọba Ádámà ṣàdá o.
Ògún máa ṣàdáyé. Ògún máa ṣàdáyé o. Ògún máa ṣàdáyé. Ọba Ádámà ṣàdá o.
Ògún máa ṣàdáyé. Ògún máa ṣàdáyé o. Ògún máa ṣàdáyé. Ọba Ádámà ṣàdá o.
Yé Ògún máa Mashada ye, Ogun Mashada ye, Ogun Mashada ye, Obada Mashada o.
Ogun Mashada ye, Ogun Mashada ye, Ogun Mashada ye, Obada Mashada o.
Ogun Mashada ye, Ogun Mashada ye, Ogun Mashada ye, Obada Mashada o.
Ogun Mashada ye,
Then you will son. Somebody.
Yeah, everyone.